And good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back. Of course, this is the exclusive interview time just with me, Beth Martens, and you, of course. It's all behind the scenes, or maybe not on Beth's side, but that's okay. We're going to keep it behind the scenes on our side. But we'll edit this all later and have a good old time. But in the meantime, Beth and I are here to talk about the hero's journey archetype. I'm super excited. It's all about navigating to my understanding, you can correct me if I'm wrong on any of this, but navigating kind of your inner workings, who you are, what you need in life, your purpose. I saw the sacred path, I think it was as well. Super excited for this. Let's kick it off. Let's do like a quick summary of what exactly an archetype is to begin with.
Right. Thanks for having me on, Sarah. Really happy to be here. And oh, there's Maya, my good friend, right on. And so an archetype I like to define as a kind of blueprint, and that everything is blueprinted. You know, so an orange is always going to be an orange and an apple is always an apple. So there are recognizable patterns in nature. As you said, not only can you see them in the natural world, but you can also very much find them inside yourself at a more subtle level. But once you see them, you can't not see them. And so I'm hoping everyone will become an archetype geek.
I'm diving in. You did send me the readings, and I'm actually more invested in the idea of diving into that after the fact, because then after this conversation, when I dive into that, it's going to make even more sense, and it's going to be the aha moment. So let's talk about, because you have a very interesting journey on how you even came to the archetypes and kind of discovering this whole new piece of you and so on and so forth. Where did this all kick off?
Yeah, so I was a 27-year-old in the corporate world working for my family's firm. And I'd only had like one job. I'd always worked with them. And I didn't have any real interest in that corporate world of any kind, but I was interested in being independent, and it was just a really easy way to keep on working. So I ended up their vice president. I was thrown in at the deep end. It was the most stressful life you could ever possibly imagine. I've had more stress than that, but the thing about that stress is that it was purposeless. Right? Like staying up 48 hours in a row to put on a McCain Foods event, as much as like I like those guys. But it just, like, what does it add up to at the end of your life? Nothing. So I was systematically getting more and more drained as I went along, and find myself in the shower. This is the sort of image that always comes to mind. And I'm banging my head against the shower wall going, how do I get out of this? And I didn't see a way, because I felt really loyal to my family's business, and I was attached, and I, thought everybody needed me. That's a nurturer's shadow, by the way, if we get to that one. And then so God said, okay, well, you need a way out. I've got one. Here's a stage 4 lymphoma. And so I knew I wasn't well, but I didn't know it was that serious. And it gave me the ticket. If you need a ticket, I don't recommend my methods, to really just step back completely from that life. I dabbled a tiny bit as I went forward, but it was kind of the beginning of the end for me. And it took me 3 years fighting for my life. It was a real knock 'em down. I had no idea what I was in for. I tried desperately to do a natural cure, moved across the country to work with a naturopathic doctor, and spent thousands and thousands of dollars, went into major debt, lost my house over trying to heal that way. And it sort of worked, and then it sort of wasn't working. So I ended up going headlong into all of the conventional not all of the treatments, but mostly chemotherapy, month upon month of getting royally poisoned. And that almost killed me. I went through a near-death experience in the process. That was extremely enlightening and awakening. And then I had a second diagnosis 18 months later, where I faced death for real. And that's when I was very fortunate to come across the work of Carolyn Miss, if you've heard of an author that she's not super awake now at all, but I do credit her for having the exactly right information for me when I needed it.
Right.
And I started working through my archetypes, and it gave me the ability to see what I didn't see. Like at the beginning, I literally couldn't see it. I would black out every time I would try to study myself and find my own patterns. But after a little while, they started to come in, and it held all the keys to me where I was losing my life. Because otherwise,
Mm.
the mystery, it seemed like I was doing everything right. It turns out that's not true. I know much more now. In this last year, I was not doing everything right by any stretch of the imagination. That's a whole other discussion if we could have some time. But so yeah, the archetypes became a guide for me to find the lost energy, which is how I subtitled my book, that that would support me and would make life worth living. So yeah, it was facing my death head on, not trying to run from it or avoid it, but walking right into it and discovering that it's not death at all, it's life.
What would you say kind of the biggest aside from the eye opener, right, of realizing I need to do some inner work, what would you say the biggest telltale signs were along the way that led you to realize? I mean, you did read Carol's book, but was there something else that said I need something more?
Well, I felt like crap, right? I was miserable. Again, I didn't mind the work that I was doing, but it had no purpose. It was so
Mm.
empty and so meaningless. It was hard to take any clients' deadlines really. I mean, I did take them seriously because that's what you do as a professional, but it was just like, what is this all for? Why am I killing myself? So there was, just the misery on the emotional level. And then I saw the incremental decline of my health where I
Mhm.
needed a lot more caffeine, and I had to soothe myself in a lot of ways. And I would just go home at night and lay comatose trying to recover for a next day's work. And so, yeah, there was a lot of signs. I don't know if you're looking for like really specific physical signs, what
Yeah.
happened, but I did end up with a rash all over my body. That was a sign of a lymphoma, really specific sign of a lymphoma.
Wow. I
Um,
mean, I would, I guess on the surface in that moment, were you just subjecting it to, oh, it's probably just stress. It's probably just I'm overworked or, like
oh
not
yeah.
even having a realization that there was something way bigger going on underneath it.
Exactly. In fact, I thought I was being a hypochondriac of my
Oh.
job because that
Oh,
that archetype that I discovered that was sucking the life out of me, his name is the rebel. I say his name just because it's a classically kind of masculine archetype.
right.
And so I rebelled my whole entire life. I was a teenage runaway. I would balk the system at every turn, fight against family, things that they wanted me to do. I was just always being the contrary and doing the opposite. So I was trying to be a good girl by going to work and being with the family's business and be recognized by society and own a house and a car and do all these normal things that I really didn't want to do. But I thought that's what I needed to do to stay in my family. And yeah, so I thought I was literally just making shit up when I was feeling sick. And then when I went to the surgeon to get the results of my biopsy, and he told me I had a stage 4 lymphoma, not just that I had cancer, but it was already very advanced. I'm like, oh, okay, I'm not
Wow.
making this up after all. Yeah.
So, in aspect of realizing it's not just me making shit up, uh, once you started going into the archetypes later, did you, in hindsight, realize, okay, I went from rebellion to like nurture, or did you see the steps along the way of different like stepping stones throughout that?
Only to unpack it now. So, no, did I see it in the moment? Absolutely not. It was
Mhm.
just crisis management and going from, little step to little step, not knowing. I was told I wasn't going to survive without a stem cell transplant. And then I discovered 50% of the people die doing that. So I'm like, half a chance to live with the immense violence. I don't know if you know what that procedure is like. It's outrageous. And
Doesn't
people end
sound.
up in isolation for an entire year. And again, half the people die doing it. So I'm like, well, they're not really giving me a chance to live. I would rather face death right now and die of this than put my body and soul mostly through all of that.
Mhm.
It was too high a price.
Was there a point where it was, I'd rather heal internally so that if I, in essence, die externally, at least I feel good going out?
Yeah, right, exactly. Because I
Mhm.
started seeing how we say eternal soul, and that may be true, but I noticed how there's, that the soul can die, or at least diminish, or at least be so grossly covered with programming that it's like it's not there. Maybe we talk about NPCs, or we talk about another version of Adam. I'm referencing something by an author, Mark Archer. I always end up talking about his work one way or another. People that they don't have basic morals. They're not really feeling they can hurt people without experiencing. I mean, we call them psychopaths,
Mhm.
that kind of thing.
You did mention that in that the book,
Right.
how psychopaths are really the problem, not men, not women. It's the psychopaths, which could be men or women. But that's a big piece that when I read that, I was like, "Ooh, that's powerful." Because especially in today's society, or at least what we see online, it's men versus women. We're constantly at this battle. Nobody wants to give an inch on it. It's like it's men's fault, it's women's fault, it's feminism, it's the matriarchy, patriarchy, masculinity, toxic masculinity, blah 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 blah. When it's like, no, the normal people are normal and good. It's these psychopaths that go above and beyond to harm and bring down everyone else. And I thought that was powerful when you said that. Uh, so
Mm-hmm.
uh, when you were going through all of this and kind of obviously in hindsight you look back and you're pinpointing these different things and recognizing the inner work, and you just mentioned there's people who walk around who are soulless and so on and so forth. Your instance was very extreme, right? I think that's a pretty big deal. Could people still have this type of awakening even with something way more minor? Because I think comparatively speaking, like for me, stress is easy, right? The world could be ending right now and be like, all right, look, here's what we're gonna do, right? Because it takes certain levels before I start panicking. Um, but for other people, it even one minor inconvenience can be the end of the world for them. So, do you think there's other people who might have that awakening moment on something much more subtle or simple?
Well, that's my hope and my prayer. And that's why I do what I do, so that people don't have to get so grossly out of alignment in order to start doing that inner work. And there's no guarantee of it. I did come out of it thinking, wow, if everybody could just have a near death experience, then
Right.
they would really embark on the path. And then I watched several family members go through life-threatening illnesses, and they didn't use it to wake up. So I realized that no, that's a choice. Whether it's something small or it's something major, then you have to choose it. And so my hope is that people can use the small stuff to choose freedom, which sounds like a cliche, but that's
Yeah.
ultimately what it is. So, and yeah, the scale of extremity, we don't have any idea what everybody's going through, what anybody is going through. And when something looks really small on the outside, it could be the biggest thing in the world for them. You look at children, for example, and if you try to tell them, like, if they suffer a loss, like they didn't get what they wanted, and we think, well, you're okay. What's wrong with you? Why are you crying? For them, it's huge,
Right.
right? And that's just where they're at. And you have to, luck, with any luck, respect that child for the scale of what they're experiencing and take them on their word. But yeah, to be able to use the small stuff, and that's what I notice over time, is that, I don't necessarily, well, is that true? I still had some knock 'em down experiences. This certainly doesn't guarantee that you're going to have the perfect life by any means. Freedom's not like that.
Mhm.
But I noticed that the problems in the world, my world, the physical manifest world, if you call it that, they get smaller, but the inner problems can get bigger, meaning what the volume is just way up on it. You're more aware of it. Like when you do something wrong, some people have no reaction to it whatsoever. But as you gain more self-awareness, if you do something wrong, then it's like, oh, someone just put a knife in my solar
Yeah.
plexus, like you did something wrong. And, so you start to feel more and everything gets bigger.
Okay. Well, could you have this type of awakening from something more happy? Like, the birth of a child is very big, and I think men even more so turn from men to fathers in that moment. Most, I'm not saying all, of course, everybody has their own world, but some men take that moment very seriously and say, I need to be a father. I need to do XYZ. And it's almost like they just turn and go in a beautiful way. Are there more happier moments or more good blessings along the way that could inevitably open up these archetype paths to leading to the next steps and moving in a good direction for that?
Yeah, great question. So I actually folded my hands and prayed to God, and I said, "What's all of the suffering about?" Because even within the happiest event of the birth of a child, there's all kinds of stress around it, right?
Mhm.
Like we need a bigger house, or all of a sudden everything's upside down. I can't keep a schedule. You don't get to have a shower for several years, and stuff like that. You know it, right? And
I just want to use the restroom by myself.
right, exactly. I just need 5 minutes. Yeah, yeah. And so everything is a mix. And within our own experience, there's a huge range from the lowest of suffering to the highest of happinesses or joys, or however you want to describe them. Believe it or not, they're all rooted in fear programming. And this is something I can't ask anyone to believe. You have to see it for yourself when you make that experiment. So the likelihood of awakening from happiness is much lower because the suffering isn't as apparent as when you're low down the scale and you're like in grief or fear or something. It's so obvious that you're suffering. But when you're in joy, it's not obvious. So people tend not to do the work when they are high. And this is also part of my soapbox that I did a training called Ascension Myth Busting that you can get for free at my homepage. And just demonstrating how the high energy is equally as stuck as the low energy. Although it is, the thing that's really good about it is that if you know happiness is fantastic for doing the inner work, then you're going to use it when it comes.
Right.
So, oh, I don't feel bad right now. Well, let's go dig something up that's going to catch me in a low moment.
Yeah.
And to start to play with that arena rather than always feeling behind the 8 ball and that you have to do this work to, survive it psychically.
I mean, so essentially, even if we're always happy and always doing something well, could you still, like you said, dig up something to tap into in order to dive into how do I need to proceed forward? So you could find something. I mean, can you find something on everyone? Is that possible?
Oh yeah. 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 It's a very humbling thing that the programming is utterly ubiquitous until freedom is complete. And
Mhm.
I think that is possible. And I'm definitely trying for that this lifetime, next lifetime. We'll see, how long does it take? We have potentially lifetimes. This you have to believe too, so I can't prove anything, but we have lifetimes of toxic accumulation in our hearts and minds.
Mhm.
And so it's a big work. It's the work of a lifetime that, I always say that people can get instant results. Like you literally can see that, oh, wow, this is a new day immediately. It's the fastest. The tools that I pair up with the archetypes are the fastest I've ever used in my life. I wish I had them when I was sick with cancer. This has evolved over time. And yeah, so this fast track is really great, and it does hold the potential for ultimate freedom, which I defy defining for anyone. It's usually people think of freedom as like, say, freedom from tyranny or freedom from illness or freedom from suffering. And that's not real freedom. Actually, we're talking about the freedom that can't be described. You're off in the realm of, could be like God, the divine creator, I am, all of those things that we've named, but really the name doesn't hold a candle to it.
So, I mean, is it more my interpretation is freedom from like freedom of yourself, in aspect of, when I was diving into some of your stuff, it was like what is holding me back from being 110%? What is keeping me limited or stopping me from just being me, right? That was my understanding of it. And with because I checked in at the King's archetype, it made sense, like what my shadow work would, or shadow pieces would be, and I was like, oh, that's good. Even a lot of people that I've heard from kind of behind the scenes have told me you don't know how to get mean. You're passive aggressive. You let things slide. You're whatever. And I'm like, yeah, but it's just not. I don't care. Right. And they're like, you need to care. Somebody's running you over. You need to care. And to me, it's like that would kind of dive into that archetype piece of, no, I probably should care. I should be mean back. Not necessarily mean, but I should stand up and I should say no and I should say screw you or whatever the case may be. Would you say that that's an aspect of it, of finding your own voice or finding your own grounding somewhere?
Yeah, so I'm a proponent of no policies whatsoever.
Mm.
Yeah, the less policies you have, the more freely that you will act and feel and express and show up in moments. And you can probably watch it. I've been, of course, watching your streams and debates. And shout out to Ben Balderson and a few others. Paul's here and Quietly
Ben,
Content Bear. They're really nice.
Ben brought us together. I love it. He's so
Yes,
sweet.
exactly.
I
Yeah, he
love
made me.
that man.
I wasn't gonna come that night. He's like, "Beth, get your ass over here." And I'm like, "Okay, all right,
Oh,
I'll do it." Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, so what was I just talking about? So freedom
no
and
policies.
no policy. Thank you. Thank you. Because the policies don't work in the real world. So as long as you're going, oh, I should say no, or I should care, or I should this and that. I mean, caring is always a good idea, because if you're not caring, you are expressing the lowest possible human vibration of apathy, right? When you don't care, that is a really hard place it's very solid and very dense and hard to get out of, and causes a lot of harm. Actually, you can see the world going to hell because people won't care. But in terms of the navigating the king, I was so not surprised to see that you got the king, being in the position that you are.
Yeah.
And honestly, I was shocked when I got in the debate and there's like 10 other people, or I don't know how many we were. It was like a whole bunch, and I'm like, whoa, I was really watching you, how you were going to manage all that. And
Up sometimes.
yeah, and
They have no idea. Sorry.
Oh yeah, exactly. I can only guess, but I'm going to be interviewing you on November 12th, so I wanted to shout out and make sure people know about that. I'll be oh yeah, no need to zip up at all, because there will be so much to talk about. But yeah, that king archetype, and so you get a lot of responsibility. You've got you have to keep your eye on like so much at one time, so many people, you're taking care of people. I've heard you talk about, there's always politics in these arenas, unfortunately, which I also despise. And so, yeah, you have to be a king, and it gives you power, as if, or, you're assuming power. A lot of people don't want to be kings. They just find themselves in that role, the very unlikely kings.
Yeah, I don't want it.
You don't want it. Yeah, which is better. Right. That's better than people who go out and actively seek power, and then they, often want to just dominate. And as we were talking just a tiny bit offline before, that the real superpower for the king is to recognize the power that is greater than them, and be able to draw on that source of life that has no end, and that you need not go and seek and grab. And learning that power over people, there's no satisfaction in it. That's just like a drug, and you get some, and you want more. Every addict ends up needing more and more again, our controllers show us how it's never enough. They always need to go next level. I just heard in Canada, it might be a rumor, but I just heard in Canada that they want to now make income tax an automatic file that they're doing. Right now, it's a voluntary file.
Oh gosh.
Yeah,
Oh,
like that's a whole other level of tyranny going on there and control, right? Like that your bank account would just upload to the government and they deal with it. Like, come on, that's
I
insanity.
would never put my money back in a bank account ever again. I'd go cash only and call it a day. Yeah. Mm-mm.
Right,
Wow.
right. Yeah,
Wow.
I
Get
know.
yourself
I know.
go home, Canada. You're drunk.
Yeah, exactly. But the no policies, this is actually really poignant with the nurturer archetype in particular, because they learn, and you might have heard this, to just, as you said earlier, to just say no. When people
Mhm.
ask you for something or help or anything like that, just say no. And those are the most miserable nurturers of all. Because why? They're acting in exact opposition to their true nature, which
Mhm.
is to help, which is to care. And so that's like baby 101, maybe step along the way, but it's not going to sustain or make you happy or fulfilled in that role.
Well, but, in aspect, wouldn't you still want to nurture yourself? And by saying no to other people, you are nurturing yourself at the same time. I feel like you have to throw yourself into that mix too. I would say that was the hardest thing I ever had to learn was saying no, because I went through those phases where it was just like, yes, I'll do it. Yes, I'll do it. Yes, I'll do it. Always just accommodating to everyone and everything. And then I forgot about myself and I forgot how to take care of me and adding in that word no, period. It was magical. It was almost enlightening for me, and a huge weight just lifted off my shoulders that I can say no. It's okay.
Fantastic for you. That's amazing. So I'm just going a little bit deeper with it. So
Mhm.
saying yes all the time is a kind of policy that you're stuck in, and then saying no all the time is also another policy that you're stuck in. So the prescription or the potential is
Mhm.
to be alive in that moment when somebody asks you, and to be able to respond rather than with a pre-programmed answer like yes or no. You respond with the reality of the situation.
Mhm.
Like, is this something that I am good at helping with? So I'm really going to be of benefit in this way. Or should they go to an accountant or somebody else that's
Right.
more qualified to help them? Is this my place? Is this my wheelhouse? Is this my purpose? That's the biggest thing, that if a nurturer finds much deeper sacred purpose, then they have that measure every time someone comes their way or something comes their way. Then they can instantly gauge, is this within the range of purpose? And if it's not, then it's very easy and okay to say no. And if
Mhm.
it is, and what you were talking about, this is one of the pendulum swings of the nurturer archetype that's so highly recognizable, is that they feel like, do I care for others or do I care for myself?
Mhm.
So this is the programming, and this is the, like, it's almost opaque. You can't see through it when you're in that. People literally think there's no other alternative. But the ultimate, say, sacred contract of that archetype is to help in a way that helps yourself. So
Mhm.
you're included in the helping. You're
Right.
taken care of in the process. That's why quitting my whole corporate gig and doing more like this, although it's evolved continuously over the last 25 years, it's always included me. I always take care of myself in the process. Like, for example, we had our House of Free Will meeting today. I got off it feeling more alive and having more vibrancy and more energy after the call than before the call, right? That gives life. Or when I coach one-on-one with a client, or when I teach a class or give a group or something like that, I always have more after. And so that's the standard of purpose that my nurturer could work within. I help people a lot and all day, and I could easily burn out doing that without it.
So it's no policies, but the only policy, if you could put a policy on, is do what leads to your purpose. Do
That's
what aids your purpose, right? Because
okay.
that has to be a policy if that is the prescription, right? So instead of just saying I will always say no, or I will always say yes, or I will always give, or I will never give, or I will always care, or I'll never care. Instead, the policy is I will always do what leads to my greater purpose.
Amazing. Yeah, beautifully said.
Oh,
And then it's no
there you
longer,
go.
yeah,
We're
and then
done, folks. We can go home now.
exactly, exactly. And you don't really need to police that in the same way.
Hmm.
Like when you look at that word policy and police,
Hmm.
it's very organic. It's got a flow to it. There's people that never waste my time anymore because I got clear. I don't have to say no almost nearly ever. People don't ask outrageous things of me.
Right.
I'm in my lane doing my thing, and I guess people know that. I don't know. I don't know what's going through their head, but
Yeah. So I mean, I feel like I'm the guy that knows the guy that knows the guy, and so with that, I'm tapped in as a resourcer. That's how I,
Mm,
in my position, especially in YouTube, but even in my real world, real job, real life, I'm always the guy that knows the guy. So usually people tap into I'm looking for X, and being able to dive in and send them off into their merry way, like that takes not even 5 minutes to connect people and do those things. So to me, people tapping in and utilizing that resource, to me that's a greater purpose. Like,
amen.
you know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
because
Yeah.
I know I've been in those positions of, gosh, I wish I had a blank, insert type of person here, insert this, insert that. And not having access to those things sucks. So to me, if I guess that's what when you said greater purpose, that's how I look at myself as just the person who everyone goes to for something, even though I'm not giving them an actual thing, I'm connecting them with the person who is. And to me, connections are very important. I don't know how you feel about connecting with people, networking, and always being around. Uh, even if you don't, even if you're not close and you're just connected via DMs or via this or via that, or I met them at a party once. Just having an established connection with people really goes a long way.
It really does. Oh, you're singing my tune there. So are you finished? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So one of the archetypes, or one of the systems of archetypes that I read, this isn't up on my website. It's more of a private thing, but I read sacred money archetypes, and the
Ooh.
connector is one of them. So I've studied this a lot, and I am number one connector too. That's my main jam. Like that's what keeps me going, is the ability to be that bridge for people. And sometimes it's like you said, my role might be like minuscule, just like, hey, here's this person, you guys need to talk, or something like that. And it's a very graceful role. You end up sometimes spread very thin, because it's like I always see the image of a river that deltas out, that
Yes.
when it just becomes like many rivulets,
Tiny, tiny little creeks.
tiny little ones, and you're all over that, right? Like you're just spread over the whole thing. So yeah, it's got some in common with the child. The connector and the child have some similar shadows, actually, just in terms of, it can be, say, the connector doesn't want to really get responsible and down to the nitty gritty, especially with money. They don't have a sense of being able to handle, complex kind of deals and transactions. And I know, yeah, like, I've had to train myself to have basic money hygiene when it comes to looking at my stuff. And I still have an accountant to show for the shadow. It's bad. So bad. But
But see, that's being resourceful. Like and that's how I look at it. I may not be the person that can give you what you need, but I know the one who is most qualified for the job.
right.
Right. And you said like a riverbed going out into smaller creeks and spreading thin. But see, I look at it as planting seeds and watching the flowers grow.
Mm.
And to me, I look at myself as a main hub, and I look outward and I see all of these big vines just growing bigger and bigger and bigger around me. And then they spring off into other vines, and they spring off into other vines. And now I can, even on YouTube, right? It's an easy example. Even Benjamin Balderson, right? Like I look at it as there's a lot of people here that meet each other on the show, and then the next week I'll see them hosting somebody they met here on panel and having a conversation. And then next thing you know, they're doing a whole series together. And that to me, that's a beautiful flower that is blooming and spreading even more vines outward there. So I don't look at it as necessarily being spread thin. I look at it as vines growing even bigger. And I think I don't know. I think it's beautiful. I don't know how else
It
to
is.
put it.
No, that's the most satisfying thing if we geek out a little bit more on the connector here, because a natural output without me trying to do this or engineer it in any way. When people come and do my courses and trainings and that kind of thing, they get connected and they stay connected. I have one group from 2022, one of my coaching trainings, and they still to this day meet at the same time every single week. The same group after more than 3 years ago. So it's yeah,
Wow, that's
and
a blossom.
it's a total blossom. I absolutely love that. And they don't invite me. I don't, they don't need me. I don't need to be there. They just took what they learned and kept going and supported
Wow.
each other. Yeah. So that's it. It's a really beautiful thing. It's been extremely satisfying.
Yeah, it is satisfying, and that's the word. Because we're over here talking about purposes and what we do, and you mentioned how the connectors don't want to be part of the big deal. They don't want to be part of the big negotiations, but the satisfying moment is knowing that we're getting the two people in the right place at the right time, and then you're watching it pan out, and it's like that is where my purpose is. That's where I find that my job is well done and I got a big smile on my face and everyone's good and I can turn around and walk away knowing that that's going to happen.
That's
And I think that speaks kind of to your idea of with the policy, non-policy of doing things for your purpose, right? It's easy for me to say, yeah, I've got somebody, hold on. And it doesn't even faze me. It doesn't bother me. It excites me and it's fun, but then if somebody asks me to actually come do some kind of work with them, it's like, that's not my purpose. So yeah, that actually makes more sense now to me.
nice.
Can we dive into we went with kind of how you got here, a little dabble into it, but can we get the archetypes and the levels, and are you able to move from level to level? Are you shifting around? Is there a high end goal? I'm guessing the heroes archetype is where you want to be. Let's start at the beginning and work our way up.
Okay, very good. Yeah, I love this so much. So they are kind of levels. So I tend not to like the word to make anyone feel like they're you're at a high level and someone else is at a low level. But here's how God fixed the game in advance: is that there's actually no end goal. It's nature is like many of the things that we find in the natural world. It's a spiral. So the first archetype, and I'll go through them one by one if you like, and say a little bit about them. The first archetype is, as if lower than the last archetype. The first one is the child. The last one is the alchemist. But when you hit the alchemist, the next archetype for you is, can you guess which one?
Back down to the child.
That's it. But not down to the child. It's up to the child.
Oh.
Because it's that spiral. I mean, you can go down to the child. That's also possible. But if you're evolving as a soul, then your next level up is going to be the child.
Now,
So
is the child after the alchemist different from the child at the start?
it's a new level. Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
But it will not be unrelated to the old levels. We carry our patterns forward and they evolve. They get more, apparent to you. Their archetypes say when you're really in the shadow of an archetype, it's like it's your enemy, your enemy within. And as you awaken to it, that's the best words that I know how to use around it, then you get more and more lucid at being able to use that energy as a tool rather than just feel beat up by it.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah. So yeah, if you like, I could go through the 8
let's do it.
archetypes and I'll give you
do
the mini mythology here. It can be unpacked like crazy. So the first archetype being the child, that's the natural beginning of anything. It's a time when you face the shadows of betrayal and abandonment. and the fear of dying, which never goes away. It's a subject for each of the archetypes. It's the big hidden subject, elephant in the room. This is a soapbox of mine. And the child is being called to go on the journey, to go on that archetypal journey that you can't get out of. If you're refusing the journey, which is a part of the child function, you're still on the journey. If you accept the call, you're on the journey. There's no way around it. And so the child has to face all of the insecurities, the loss of innocence, which is really ignorance, and allow themselves to see, come out of denial. That's where a lot of, say people in the truth world would allow themselves to see and be betrayed by the system that was really trying to kill us, or is still trying to kill us.
Right.
And so,
right? Say it with your chest.
Right? I remember how they had stickers on the floor and they were wagging
Oh
at
my
you and
God,
telling you to
yes.
go home. It's all just drenched in the child archetype. I was amazed, like, wow, guys, can we be any more explicit about this?
Yes.
They knew what they were doing. And so as you waken up out of denial and you say, yes, I'm coming, I'm going to fulfill on this purpose, even if I don't know what it is, it moves you forward into the rebel archetype. So that's more where a lot of us found ourselves in, where we're willing to see, we're willing to get mad at what we see, get a little up in arms, be willing to fight for the truth and fight for freedom, which is kind of a shadow of its own.
Would you compare, I mean, in my brain, I'm thinking, for instance, a kid who, this is how I kind of, like analogy, I guess, a kid who is maybe 10, 11, moving into our preteens. And as they start getting older, I just went through this with my daughter, she's 16, and they start fighting that idea of like, well, I'm a kid, but I'm a big kid, or I want all of the things that big kids get to do, but I don't want to deal with the things that big kids have to deal with, right? Obviously, there's a difference between a 5-year-old and a 12-year-old and what kind of chores you would have and what kind of responsibilities. And it's like, well, which way do you want it? You have to pick. You can be that child. You can pretend that you're not of age, or we can treat you at the age that you are. You can take responsibility, own it, but you have to understand where you are. Is it? I mean, am I in the right wheelhouse? That's what immediately where my brain went.
Yeah, that's the kid doing a figure eight between the child and the rebel. They really haven't fully, because if they were moving forward, they'd end up in the rebel. Pardon me, from the rebel to the warrior is what I meant to say. And that's where they're willing to take on more responsibility and roll up their sleeves and do the work, whatever the work is. But yeah, they tend to like come up into the rebel and have, kind of rebel outburst and demand their freedom. And then they'll use the child as a way to go back and it's like, oh, well, I don't have any responsibilities. I don't have to look after anything or follow through, or I'm bored, those kind of things. Yeah. Yeah. And that's exactly what we were doing. The whole figure eight, man, that is, really,
during that one time when that, you talk about during like C19 stuff?
Yeah.
What we were doing? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Because I feel like people wanted to not be compliant, but they had to be compliant. And it was like, I want to speak out. But I don't want to have issues. And I feel like we were just that makes sense. We were going through like this weird cycle of how do we say no and not get in trouble at the same time? And how do I stand up and yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Stand up against things and still have my family love me and
right.
that kind of thing. Yeah. 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 Which I failed to do. So yeah, when the rebel shadows of things like boredom, not wanting to work, not wanting to take responsibility, that they start to awaken to those shadows, it moves them forward into the warrior, as I mentioned, where you have the ability to just get in and do the thing and, build out for the long haul, any kind of infrastructure that's needed for this journey, to become a fighter who understands when not to fight, extremely important skill,
Yes.
when to just sit back and go, okay, this isn't my hill to die on. It's not my purposeful journey. And when it absolutely is time to go to war. And so, yeah, when the warrior faces for women, it's often going to be the outer demons and dragons, getting into the world, doing something, manifesting, building. For men, it's going to be more of the inner demons and dragons, because women love that stuff. They tend to love that stuff more. That we're very
Yeah.
comfortable with inner work, not so comfortable with outer life, and the reverse is true. And so when the warrior faces the demons and dragons wherever they are, that moves them forward on the journey. They become a champion for the people, and that comes into the nurturer archetype that we talked about before.
Mm-hmm.
And so the nurturer suffers basically with the bad boundaries. They give too much. They neglect themselves. They end up hating people that they help, which is really secret. Nobody, if you admit to that, you're a very like a bigger person than most. And so when they gain the boundaries that are very healthy, not based on policy, but based on purpose, that moves them forward into the lover archetype. And so that's halfway through the journey, going from the ego side of the journey to the soul side of the journey. One's not better than the other. They're just two very different places to work. The nurturer has that, like, who am I reference in the world? Am I okay? Like helping to be okay and seen that way in the eyes of the world. The lover doesn't suffer with that. They go right to the source. They sit down and like, oh, okay, God, or whatever word you want to use. Either all the words are problematic. God's telling me to do this. And it's like, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm not going to ask my best friend if that's a good idea. I'm not going to go and ask permission from the government. It's going to be between me and God.
Now, you were talking about, I want to kind of jump in real quick, the shadows. The shadows are kind of like your downfall being in that archetype, right? It's the things that will keep you held back from moving forward. Is that my understanding?
Yeah, the way I describe that is it's where you lose energy. And the word shadow is actually pretty good, even though I reject it sometimes like a rebel without a cause. But the shadow, all it means is that it's hidden from you. You can't see it. It's chances are everybody else can see it. It's one of those interesting games that God put up, like how everyone can see that you're struggling and you're in denial.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So yeah, it's just what you don't see. It's not spooky. There is evil. That's a whole other different subject. And I believe evil interacts with the shadow much more easily than any person awakened in an archetype,
Right.
but it's not inherently evil. It just can be fodder for that. Yeah. And yeah, so
what would be a few things that would, like an example of something that stands out to other people, but not to you, can't see it? What would be an example of that?
oh boy, let me see if I can come up with a quick one that, say back in my corporate days, everybody could see it was killing me.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody could see that, or not everybody, but there were people in my life that could see I needed to get out. People were in the habit of not telling me what they saw, though, because I think I trained them for some years that they shouldn't tell me anything, right? Back to that rebel shadow on my side. So I trained people not to give me feedback because they were scared of the backlash.
Oops.
And yeah, I know exactly. I had someone directly point that out. One of my mentors way, way back in the day pointed it out to me. And I'm like, oh, okay. So maybe an adjustment.
Yeah.
In that. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I would even say I love feedback, but don't be surprised if I argue you on it. I will defend it. If you tell me, well, this is what you're doing wrong, I'm like, okay, but here's why. Like, it's
Right.
like, I want to accept what you're saying, but I'm still going to justify and defend it because I believe that I'm right in my stance, and no matter what. I'm never wrong, right? Like that. That's how I look at it.
Got it. Got it.
Or I may not always be right, but I'm certainly never wrong. That's how I view it.
Nice. It's one of the superpowers of the king, actually, to take feedback.
Mm-hmm.
And it can be a very hard thing because you're taking feedback from people who don't have a clue, or you really have to sift through and consider everything, not have policies around it. There's always block and delete, but it's not always time for that. There's time to be porous and take in so that you can benefit the whole entire kingdom, kind of thing.
Yeah, I would say even with feedback and criticisms, like I enjoy hearing it, even if it's negative. Not obviously not derogatory, right? There's a
Right.
difference. But I like to sift through it and let it kind of add it and process in a way, because I want to be able to come up with the idea myself, right? I don't want you to tell me, well, you should do this better. And it's like, well, now I'm not going to do it. Why would why would I do it that way?
Oh,
Whereas
interesting.
yeah, like if you're gonna tell me this is what I see, this is what you're doing, here's my recommendations, whatever, whatever. It's like, okay, cool. And then I let it sit, and then it sits, and then it sits, and then it grows into something better because I've come up with the idea on my own based on feedback that's pushed in. I think there's a real big difference on how people can give criticism. And that's very important.
That's nice. You're actually speaking the alchemist archetype in that, which is right on
Yeah.
the heels of the king. I don't know if you want me to go back and go in order.
Oh yeah,
Or
we
we got
left off on the lover. I interrupted with the shadows, so we
That's okay.
can
Yeah, no
climb
problem
back
at
in
all.
on that.
Yeah, no problem at all. So we're not far. The lover suffers perfectionism and obsession and compulsion. And once they overcome those shadows, it moves them forward into the one I affectionately call the hedonist. That's to most people not a good word, but I'm on a mission to reclaim the hedonist.
Mhm.
And when the hedonist learns that pleasure is a path to God, to awakening, to greater self-awareness and freedom, instead of just being the hungry ghost trying to eat every pleasure and get more and more empty as you consume, then that moves them forward into the king. It's a very big leap from the hedonist to the king. It's a monumental, can be a very big jump to go from, what potentially could have been a life of leisure and doing whatever you want to having much greater responsibility and power as a result.
Mhm.
And then the king, we've talked about the shadow of power, the perils of power, being the one that is projected on the most. When people have a problem in your kingdom, they tend to project negative stuff onto you. You have to contend with that. The benevolent king, when there's problems in their kingdom, they say, one of my favorite things is, how did I do it? Even though it looks like so and so is a jerk, or so and so is doing all the wrongs, or all of this kind of thing, that they have the capacity for radical responsibility. So
Right.
no more sorting out what's my problem or what's somebody else's problem, is taking it as a technique that it's all my problem. It's all my fault, is the wrong word, but it's all my doing. I did it. I'm promising to write a book in the future called I Did It, for that
I
exact reason.
I
Yeah.
love
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Thank
So
you.
so even if like I'm trying to think of an example. Somebody brings something to you and it has nothing to do with you, but you still take it on as, well, you were part of my kingdom. Therefore, I can resolve this with you. Even if my resolve is something minimal or a way to assist, I can still take this on as this is my responsibility. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, so the real fine point of it, it could be tweaks. It could look. You don't know how it looks until you're in that exact situation. But that question of, how did I do this? Say, I'll use an example of my son when he was 11, and we ended up at war. He was a little rebel, and it was very difficult to raise him, to say the least. And there was no fixing the situation with him. There was no fixing a situation with his dad, that I couldn't appeal to either of them. They were in the wrong, clearly doing wrongs, but I was getting nowhere with trying to manage them.
Mhm.
So I turned the whole thing around. I said, how did I do it? And I found all the things inside myself that, in fact, did contribute to the problem. And I worked solely on myself, and I made myself a happier person, and I made myself a happier parent. And the next thing you know, my son started to lean in and, take advice from me and confide in me and not fight with me at every turn. Like, it was a magical transformation.
I
And
love
it's
that.
just finding all that stuff inside myself that, yeah, they're wrong. How do I feel about it? What's the program that has me? Here's one example of how one program can express, is actually wanting to change and therefore kill people, which I know will make
Right.
no sense to anybody, but it's kill energy, right?
Right.
When you want to change somebody, it's like you want to kill them. And that's what they're unconsciously receiving is your kill energy. It's
Oh,
like,
that
so
makes so much sense.
I know, I know. So
Oh.
if you just take that element out, then everything can change.
Well, would you say that would be like finding I look at finding the good in everyone as a very important trait. I mean, there are people that are just bad people. We recognize that. But being able to recognize that everybody brings something to the table. It's just different. It looks different for everyone. And I'll use the show for example. Some people don't like smaller content creators. Some people don't like people that don't have the full gear tech setup. I welcome them all with open arms because I say, even though they're not set up like this, they're not this, that, whatever, they still have something very important to offer to the situation. It's something very vibrant and beautiful, even if nobody else sees it. Right. So being able to take, for instance, your son and his rebel phase, were you able to in turn your direction to seeing what he does well and seeing where he shines the brightest and kind of uplifting that in order to kind of bring him back around? Is that a piece?
Yeah, you're talking the lover right now, by the way, and seeing the beauty. And so, yeah, programming really obscures the beauty that's there. If we call it the good or the whatever in everyone, and that could be just blaring right in your face, but you don't see it because you're running your own programs, and that's your own inner experience. So yes, absolutely, 100% that you see things about people that you never saw, and it increases discernment of all of it too. It's not rose-colored glasses where you
Mhm.
see the good and you ignore the bad. It's not like that. But we are all that mix of well-intentioned and ill-intentioned at the more hidden kind of unconscious level.
Mhm.
So yes, absolutely, you see more of the good in everyone this way.
But I mean, would that in turn magnetize, for instance, in the situation of your son kind of coming in, changing his direction and coming back to you and asking for your advice and so on and so forth, because you're not trying to kill his energy. Instead, you're trying to uplift the good in him. Is that like a heel turn for a person instead of fighting against those things that bother you or those things that are causing problems or whatever. And I feel like we work this way with children quite often, but rewarding good behavior. And sometimes you ignore certain things that they do because they want the attention for it. But
Yeah.
instead you turn your energy and effort into the good things they're doing because that's what we want them to thrive off of instead of getting negative attention. Is that a way to incorporate that in?
Yeah, it can be, but it can be, I'll geek out a little bit here. It can be
Ooh.
equally as driven by programming. So you can even take this good thing of wanting to find the beauty or the good or the great qualities in somebody else, but use it from a place that's driven by some kind of fear inside yourself. So as a tool, it can end up being a way to manipulate, but I totally get you're not saying that. It just
Mhm.
has that potential like everything. So that's why for me, it's always a process of elimination, eliminating the programming, and then see what the natural expression of life is. I was like, oh, I see the greatness. I remember when I realized I had pointed one of my weaponized programs at my son because I grew up feeling like I needed to be of value and work all the time, and I have a very productive family, and they were workaholics, and to be, so I had this internalized thing that, oh, I'm useless. And then when my son didn't like working at all, like, I couldn't get him to contribute in any way. He was one of those kids. Some kids are real contributors and some are just not.
Mhm.
And I was really, so I was literally I'd never call him useless, but boy, I was pointing that program at him, the same
Right.
one that I used on myself. And then so when I became aware of that and I stopped pointing that program at him and just allowed him to develop, because that's kind of what you need to do with rebels too, is allow them to take their own steps, let
Mhm.
them invent everything, let them have all the
Like,
ideas.
have the space to maneuver.
Yeah, to create in their own image rather than you trying to prescribe, here's a good creation, here's a thing. And honestly, I could not be the more proud mom of a nearly 19-year-old who has actualized.
Right.
And I sat back, I'm present, I'm there. I've been a mom that just any way I can show up. I want to do that, right? Like it just gives me, and now I feel like it's a privilege to be in his life, because I would say a year ago, I was wondering if he would ever become productive in any kind of way that like making money or anything like that. But right now, he ended up getting himself a full-time job. And he got this beautiful girlfriend, needle in a haystack. All of these terrible young women out there these days, or at least what I'm hearing, it's a mess. And he's just creating his life in leaps and bounds. And he's got more development emotionally than the vast majority of adults out there. Like empathy, he can actually feel what somebody is feeling, or imagine that they have feelings.
Wow.
And that's all just by letting him. Now, not every child, that's not the prescription for every child, but that was definitely for him.
I mean, what would be an example of kind of giving him that space to figure it out? What, like something like a very specific moment where you're just like, I'm going to X while he's doing Y. Well, I mean, I don't need a hardline example, but a hypothetical.
Right. Well, I mean, I always had jobs for him. I'm a business owner, so I can always, and I come from a line of people that hired their children. I was the only one who wanted to do that. And I kept trying to hire him to get him to do this job or that job, or, get into even things that he would like, maybe, video creation. He did the bumper on my podcast, you'll see on the 12th. And, but it was always a little bit like pulling teeth. And I would ask once, and then I was asked twice, and I'd probably have to ask like 9 or 10 times. And then we'd go back and forth because he wasn't really caring or paying attention or anything like that, right? The juice wasn't in there. And so I learned to stop asking him and just, do my work, stay in my lane, get my, not mourn the fact that he doesn't want to work for me. And then, so he fully showed up
and transitioned into his own, he's going to go get his own job and do what he actually wants to do.
Right. And be fully responsible, be up at 5 a.m. in the morning and work.
Ooh.
I know, crazy in Canada. And just doing, I didn't even know, is he going to be able to wake up on his own? Do I need to be the waker upper? And I just said, no, leave it to him. And he's been handling everything. So it's amazing.
Does that tap into the idea of enablers, especially in the nurturing style of worlds, right? There's people that you enable what was that book I read? Codependency.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel the need to be responsible for my child, but I need them to need me to do these things. Yeah. Would that be kind of tapping into that idea of pre you figuring out what you need to do versus post, where that codependency is, I need to be mom. I need to wake you up. I need to give you work. I need to make you responsible. I need you to need me. Is that kind of, because the Codependency was a really good book. I don't know if you'd ever read it, but it really chimes into that idea of I would say would definitely be in the nurturing realm, but you have to be the nurtured. You have to be the center of everything, where everybody needs you, because that makes you important. That gives you purpose, right? But the reality is that's not really your purpose, because that's not doing anybody any good. And then it leads into, I'm enabling people to just depend on me. And I'm enabling people to just make me do all of the work, because I'm not allowing them to figure it out for themselves. Does that hit home on that?
Yeah, exactly. That's the nurturer. One of the big nurturer shadows there is that they get their self-worth by helping others. And so if you can create a dependency that someone needs you, like you said, without seeing that you need them to need you, and that it's actually very selfish what that nurturer is doing. It's driven by their own need. It's not really got the other person in mind. So it's opposite to their true nature. They're trying to get something, or they're giving to get, but they trying to get something is hidden from them. It might be obvious to others,
Hmm.
right? Another example. So yeah.
Yeah. So you said we could go from the alchemist back to the child, but at any point, can you tap into any of the archetypes, depending on the situation, scenario, the people? And is that recommended, or is it good? Is it bad to maneuver around? Is that even a thing?
Yeah, there's a natural flow. My main thing with archetypes is watching and identifying that it's important to know who you are, but I always say it's important to know where you are. And so if you're especially in a place where you're stuck in a certain kind of a dynamic, or you're struggling, or you're losing energy, or your health is bad, whatever it is, then you can often find the archetype that is got a large concentration of shadow going on. And the advantage of finding that place that you're at is that you can see several things. First of all, you see clearly the whole dynamic of the shadow, how they're all put together, because you could have, say, one problem enabling as a nurturer, but you don't see that it's also related to the fact that your health isn't good, and you stop and start all the time. You pick up projects, and then you quit, and then you start again, and you hate everybody, and then you quit, and so there's a natural flow in when you find out where you are. You also have a sense of where you've come from, which might give you insight into any hangovers, right? So in um, the lover archetype often has nurturer hangovers. So they're forward on the journey, but they'll still have the shadows of the nurturer popping up, kind of telling them it's more, there's more to clean up there. And
Hmm.
then you also see what's ahead of you, so you know what you're working towards, and what would awakening your own shadows in that archetype actually add up to as it moves forward on the journey. So the contextualization is very good. It's easy to see that you're stuck, but when you're and this is how I saved my life, honestly, with using one archetype, not even like a whole massive, I did study a lot at that time, but it was really one archetype that I woke up. And by being so precise about the shadow, exactly where you're stuck, I was I was there in the conventional medicine world. They were throwing the book at me, giving me more chemo than nearly anybody, because I was young, and I had a Hodgkin's lymphoma, which is considered to be curable on a first diagnosis, not a second one.
Hmm.
But so they would just like they massacred me with the chemical. Um, it was a miracle I got pregnant. Actually, I probably they told me I would not get pregnant after that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, really intense. That's what I almost died of when I had the near death experience, was the chemo, not the cancer. And
Doesn't that hold true with most of the stuff too? Is that it's not the cancer that will actually kill you, it's just all of the radiation, chemo treatments and everything else, and like lowering your immune system. And it's a tangent, I apologize,
that's okay.
but
Yeah.
isn't that like doesn't that hold true with most of it? I thought that was a thing.
In a way, I understand cancer now in a totally different way. Is that like a censorable word on your channel, by the way? I always say the big C instead. Okay, it doesn't matter. Uh, and yeah, so to me now I see it that cancer, mostly, there may be some exceptions, but it's just mostly advanced toxicity. So when there's too much toxicity in the body, your body finds ways to cloister the poisons
Mhm.
away from the rest of the tissues. That's what tumors are. Had a big tumor in my neck here, and it's just protecting the rest of my system, giving a place for all of that unmanageable poison that my liver can't process, to store for a rainy
Mhm.
day. Hopefully, sometimes that rainy day doesn't come, but the cancer will kill you for sure. If you're so toxic that your body needs to make tumors, you're way on at the end of the scale. And so yes, like in a way, it's the same, because the treatments are just more toxicity, right?
Oh,
Chemotherapy is like infertility drugs. So you're adding toxicity to toxicity,
right.
and the chemo appears to shrink tumors. It does have a death. Uh, it's a killer. It kills tissues. You can feel like you're dying from the inside on those drugs. they're totally anti-fertility. They definitely are part of the anti-fertility psyop or infertility psyop.
Mhm.
But yeah, the Cancer, it's way simpler in some ways. There might be exceptions, which I can't say too much about
Mhm.
in terms of growths and stuff like that. But yeah, it's the cure can be worse, and the cure can we're just so misled. If you ever want to have a whole conversation on the health stuff, then I'm totally
Fair
in.
enough. I know I
So much.
went on a
Like, go,
tangent
go,
with
go.
that one. I definitely went on a tangent with that one, but it just kind of sparked my curiosity on it. But yes, I
Of
apologize.
course.
You were talking about the
Thank you.
toxicity and how that was leading into finding that one I think you were looking at one archetype specifically
Yeah,
during this process.
that precision, like you were asking just about or I was talking about the place that you are on the journey. Can you move
Mhm.
around? Absolutely. It's very fluid. So if people are interested and they'd like to go and have their archetypes read in about 10 minutes, just answering some questions, then do you mind if I post a link in your chat? Maybe
Yeah.
it won't post. I don't know if I have a.
Put it in the private chat
Okay,
backstage, and then I can
perfect.
drop it to mine.
Great.
Mhm.
And yeah, so you can find out right away. And then if you do the quiz periodically, I don't recommend doing it every week or even every month, but you can see how you're moving on the journey.
Oh, so now could this be a daily difference in aspect, or even situational where you tap into different archetypes?
100%. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. There's archetypes that might not be. There's another system that I haven't done this for a while. Keep meaning to resurrect it, but reading people's archetypes of origin. So that when you look back in your life, this is a different system I created.
Ooh, hold on. What's the
Yeah.
origin spot of it? Let's okay. All
Yeah,
right, I'm all
exactly,
ears.
exactly. So you'll be able to look back in your life. This is how I started doing my wheel of origin. And looking back in your life, you'll see what are the constant threads, not the ones that popped up circumstantially. So some people may not have a nurturer archetype, but then they got pregnant and they gave birth. And then for, 18 years or more, they end up nurturing and they call on, I don't like that expression, but they draw on the energy of the nurturer. And then when they're not mothering anymore, it might disappear entirely. Like it's just not part of their normal life. But there will be those archetypes that are persistent and they keep showing up and they keep expressing in different ways, but it's the same patterns. And so you'll be able to create a profile of yourself that includes 8 mutable archetypes, kind of like how astrology would say that, and then 4 fixed. And there's actually, as far as I'm concerned, 5 fixed. I call them the primal archetypes. So there's probably 13 if I created new wheels these days.
How,
And
how do you how do you figure out what's fixed and what's more I guess not fixed?
right, right. Mutable, I guess. Yeah.
Oh,
The-
mutable. That was the word.
yeah. Yeah. It's just by observation. It's also partly that, like, say, Carolyn Miss, she identified what does she call them? I don't know. That she identified 4 archetypes that don't change, that are present for everybody all the time. And that's the victim, the child is included in that one, the saboteur, the prostitute, and now that's 4. So that's her 4. I included the masculine feminine archetype as a 5th, and I call them the primal archetypes. So no matter where you are on the hero's journey in these 8 archetypes of the child, the rebel, the warrior, the nurturer, the lover, hedonist, king, and alchemist, you'll always have those 5 archetypes present. You'll always be dealing with the victim, always be dealing with the saboteur, the prostitute, the child, double child, and the masculine feminine. They don't go away. They're present at every single stage of the journey, no matter what. They're the life and death archetypes. When you're facing death, they're very big and prominent in your facing life, which it can feel like the same thing, facing life and death. I have a whole course on that called Primal Archetypes. And if people feel brave and they want to dive into that, I did a lot of work in the last years on those archetypes.
Okay, so When you go from alchemist to child again on a more upward developed, you're spiraling upward, I assume. I'm assuming you can go back down too, right?
You can go down. Yeah, snakes and
Okay.
ladders. Oh,
Uh,
yeah.
so
Yeah.
when you're going up though, like what would the child be when it's more developed in that aspect? Like what, because I'm trying to think of what a child would be if you could be a mature child in that realm of an archetype. What would it look like? Or is it the same?
Right. Yeah. So the child has qualities. Every adult has the child. There's no, you can be a 99-year-old woman and you still are going to express the child archetype. So that it's not age dependent. And it's not necessarily an immaturity, like we talk about it in a developmental kind of, emotional or anything like that. But when you think about the alchemist, so the alchemist superpower, this is the only one we didn't talk about yet. And so the alchemists, their biggest superpowers are to create something out of nothing and to bring the elixir home. So this is the punchline of the hero's journey, that it's not enough, I always say, just to solve your own problems and fix the things that ail you and meet your goals. You have to turn around and bring the goods back to the people. What did you learn? What were the lessons? How can you take all of that now and make it something of value to your people, not all people, but the ones that you are purposed to have a role in their life? And so this brings you back to the beginning again, right? It's like you could be finished and just go on vacation and lay on the beach, but it's like, nope, there's a calling, and that is the child. So that's the next level or layer of the calling, which is continuously unfolding over a lifetime or lifetimes.
Would you say that second spiral up would be trying to think, like, would you run through it a little faster? Like, it's my second time round. I'm gonna get through this evening. Or are you just constantly spiraling and or going back down or coming back up and going and going and going and going? I mean, at what point do you what's the word I'm looking for? Do you triumph in this inner work and you triumph in knowing your purpose, or because you know your purpose so well, you're just constantly going around so fast and quickly that every day is just like there are no shadows. You are just doing everything with purpose, and it's just so circular with the beauty behind it.
Nice. You make ask awesome questions, by the way. This is fun for me. Yeah, yeah. So this is the whole thing again, back to the ascension myth busting soapbox that I get on, that when you start seeing that, oh, I can travel these spirals and I'm gaining momentum as I do it, because the more you're aware of the shadows and the dynamics and patterns, the faster you don't have to play into them for a year or 2 years or 5 years or 10 years. You can, like, oh, I see that right away. I can release and move on. So what ends up happening is you go up through the spirals. God knows how many we've been through. And it's a little bit like astrology too, where certain, now I'm not an expert, but I do know enough to know that you're transiting through certain planets. Like, it's never just one influence. You've got multiple influences at all times, and they're moving at different speeds. Also is very potential, but unique to us at what speed we're going through things. So you raise your frequency as you go through it. And I'm a big proponent to say that basically, if you're chasing frequency, you are on a dead end road, dead end, even though you're getting higher and higher and higher. But guess what happens when you go high? As above, so below. You've expanded the low side and given yourself an incredible amount of work to do. So to me, the archetype spiral is a map. And what is the purpose of the map? Is to get off the map.
There is no map that we want to be on, right?
Not forever. It's a beautiful tool. And
Right.
we can, it's just like the emotions are exactly the same way. They're on a spiral and they go up. And when you hit the highest emotion, it's going to become the lowest emotion, a new
On
level of it.
next year.
Yep, exactly. But if you stay on the emotional spiral, you're going worse than nowhere. And you're giving yourself the illusion that you're so high and you're so maybe spiritual or enlightened. And everybody's going to know you're not.
So is it by way of I'm going to utilize the archetypes as a tool to help map me to finding my greater purpose. But once I already know, it's like using GPS to get somewhere. But after you get there, after you go that direction, I don't know, 10 more times, eventually you don't need the GPS to take you there anymore. You already know how to get there. So you can remove the archetype tool altogether by way of saying, I already know where I'm going. Like, I
Mhm.
know how to get there. GPS helped me get here once. I can use GPS if I lose my way, but I don't need it anymore. I know how to get to where I'm going.
Right. That sounds like fun, but I don't think it's the reality of it. That
Mhm.
hardwired into the hero's journey is uncertainty. And so, say you get things so figured out where you know exactly where you're going and you don't need the map anymore. And there are times like that, absolutely 100%, that life is obligated to put some kind of either challenge in your way, or if you've really totally solved all your problems, you're going to pick up a lot of problems serving others in the next level of it, like a lot,
Yeah.
sometimes a lot more than you expected. And so it's a fun game because as soon as you're certain, then almost inevitably there's a plot twist of some kind and it creates new uncertainty. And it's the invitation to grow, which is very uncomfortable, right? That when you even just think about like when a child is getting their teeth, that's pain.
Yes, but it's so exciting because now you're getting big kid teeth.
Exactly. It's the most exciting thing ever.
Or even growing pangs for a kid, as their bones are expanding out and moving, they get the I remember those, like, especially in my legs, it was just like, "Oh, they just hurt all the time, why?" And it's like, "Oh, you're growing, these are growing pangs." Growing hurts a lot.
It really does. And we
It's
never, yeah, the calling for growth will never stop as far as I'm concerned.
Mhm.
So that's the humbling part. Like some people think that the inner work is going to make you so great. To me, it makes you so humble.
Well, at what point do you get to relax?
I don't know.
In turn, well, I mean, I'm really big on growth and improvement, and I think everybody can dive into that. And if you're not trying to improve on a daily basis, then why are you here, right? But at what point do you say, you know what? I've done a lot of work, and now I just want to kind of relax for a little bit.
Mhm.
Not to say that you stop uh, having curiosities, you don't stop doing inner thought processes and so on and so forth. But it's like, it's not that I can't grow anymore. I just kind of want to take a break. What does that look like?
Right. So, um, oh boy, there's a lot of angles I want to talk about here. The relaxation can be very much installed in the growth process, and it should be because if you don't take care of your nervous system, good luck with growing with any kind of happiness or satisfaction. It might be, way more difficult and painful than it even needs to be.
Mhm,
So learning to relax, the classic thing where you're giving birth and then you're also doing relaxation exercises. Like I'm in the
mhm.
midst of a kind of, storm of endorphins and hormones and yelling and all that kind of thing. And then where is the eye of the storm? Being able to find the eye of the storm is a really beautiful thing. I did a lot of work with that when my body was so sick. Being able to find peace even though there was no peace in this
Mm,
vehicle whatsoever. So that's very important. And then getting a break. I always say, like in the work that I do, it can be hard to imagine it. And we've all tasted freedom, But because it's so elusive and nobody's been taught how to really truly work for that, like we can work to improve, but that's not necessarily freedom. It can be driven by fear programming, the improvement, right? We want to be better so we don't die, or we want to be better so people will love us, or we want to be better so we're being in control, all of those hidden motivations. Then when you start seeing the accumulation of, because just the same way that toxicity accumulates in the body, it accumulates in the mind and the heart, but so does freedom, right? You get your bank of freedom where there's an accessibility. It's just a metaphor. It's probably not even that accurate, but freedom becomes more accessible to you. More immediate. It doesn't take you, maybe at the beginning, it takes you a long time to reach the, I want to say state, but it's not a state. It's not a thing. It's like, it's not a frequency.
Right.
And so when you actually start to be really in that place of freedom, there's no need for a break. There's no sense of hardship. There's no sense of like, oh, I need a vacation from this in any shape or form. Like you don't need a break from freedom. And growth will continue to happen. If you initiate it, that's fun. That's way more fun than just waiting for life to blow up in your face and give you cause to do work. So either way, you have to do the work. It's also why I recommend Sacred Purpose, because if you're doing the work for what you know to be truly purposeful and sacred in your life, totally different than, again, just troubleshooting problems that force you. Like I was forced to do that work in a life or death kind of way. That's not what I hope for anyone.
How do you know your sacred purpose is the right one? How do you know?
Well,
What if I pick, what if I think it's right and then it's completely wrong? And then I find out later, I'm like, that was not my purpose. I messed up. Is that
right.
possible?
You know, one of the things that I love to do is dispel the myths of sacred purpose. And it is confusing because of the language. It's a noun. When we say sacred purpose, it's a thing, but it's not a thing. It might be more of a verb, more of a process. And so people say, oh, I'm looking for my purpose. And then I created a course called Find Your Sacred Purpose, plays into that. I'll admit that's.
By the way, ladies and gentlemen, you can find that link and discount code in the video description. Go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, that's one of my all-time favorite courses. And so, yeah, dispelling the myths that you're looking for a thing, because purpose can express differently over time. That's the beauty of learning to look back and finding what are the common threads at the level of the archetypes rather than the thing. Right. So some people might say, oh, and there is a way to be all over the place, but say, I'm working in the corporate world. What were the sacred purpose threads there too? Even though I felt like it was a total void, that's not the truth. If I went back, I could see exactly the things that line up with me at the level of my values and my mission. Right. So I did have a sense of awakening to, and this is just a purely internal experience, I can't say this is true for everybody, but I had the memory of hovering before coming to Earth, whatever that meant. And I heard myself say, I'm going in again.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I like this.
Right. But with complete amnesia, right? We all come and we're mind wiped and we have, again, no idea what's the purpose of me or my life or life in general. And we're retasked to ask all those questions. In fact, we're tasked to ask it not just daily, but sometimes on a moment to moment basis. And so that's my goal for this course, is that people live purposefully. Now, in the process, they end up discovering things about themselves that they may not have known, or they may not have given themselves permission to cultivate. So interests in particular areas. I've watched my son go through it. So, he was very into the skateboards, and then he took that very same energy and he put it into photography. And then he picked it up out of photography and he put it into music. And
energy. It's all, and this is what you started sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but
that's okay. You're having an
it's like
epiphany.
it's all coming. It's coming full circle.
Yeah.
Where am I putting my energy? And if I put that energy in something that's not serving my greater purpose, or the thing that is not serving my mission statement, for instance, then what the hell am I doing? I mean, I feel like this is a good business model, even for a corporation. Where are we going to spend our time, our investment, our employee energy, so on and so forth? Are we going to focus on some project that like does nothing for us? It's just something fun that we wanted to do, or are we going to focus on this big kahuna of a project that brings value to our company, so on and so forth? So the thing about the skateboard, and then the photography, and then so on and so forth, that all you just zapped it right there for me. Where am I putting my energy, even if it's in people, time, situations, work, life? That makes sense why you thought your job, like you figured out your job in big corporation wasn't serving a greater purpose for you, because you were putting your energy all in the wrong place, in something that you may not even have believed in deep down, or whatever the case may be. God, this makes so much more sense. Okay. I'm sorry.
Exactly. No, that's okay. That's really good. You're having epiphanies. So I recently started to get interested in working for one of my colleagues that I've been following and has helped a lot on the health journey. So I'll save all of that because it's such a rabbit hole. But for the first time in 25 years, I wanted to do public relations, which was a big part of my role back in the family business. I never wanted to do that before in that whole entire time. But suddenly, because this was so purposeful, I wanted to have that role in this company's life, to be able to help them navigate all of the conflict that was arising, because they're like, he's a target when he's got some, as far as I'm concerned, real deal health kind of stuff. Shout out to Garrett Smith, by the way, is who I'm talking about. And then next thing you know, I'm offering to be on his PR team to help him navigate the conflicts that come up. And he did involve me in one of the projects, and it was like beautiful. It was extremely purposeful for me, even though it's tied to that work that I thought wasn't purposeful, but it showed me, no, that thread is still very much in me, to be able to communicate and part connector, and to see from many people's eyes, and the king's eye view, where you're able to see over time things develop, and what kind of relationship can you cultivate, and how can you turn chaos into the next good thing, or point of growth for a company or an individual. And I just saw, yeah, like, it's full of purpose for me. It was just the corporate life was draining me, beyond measure. It wasn't the work I was doing. It was that environment. So yeah.
That makes even more sense. Okay, because you're still pouring your energy into something, into an environment that maybe is not the right environment. It's like doing something like, for instance, I almost failed art class in high school. I draw pretty good. It's I'd say pretty impressive, if I could say so myself, right? I'm a little biased, but I think it's much more than the average person can do. But I almost failed art class. But the reason why was they were forcing me to draw stuff I didn't care to draw,
Right.
right? So I didn't want to do it. I was kind of rebelling in that aspect, but I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to be in there. I didn't want you telling me about these stupid colors and why they complement and whatever. I just want to be able to draw a picture that I want to draw. Right. So putting my energy into something that I was like, I don't want to do this your way, because this is not where I get all of my creativity. This is not where I enjoy this moment. I draw because I enjoy drawing, and it's a release, and I don't want rules around this drawing. Am I hitting a nail here somewhere
For
in
sure.
there?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
You nailed it with the rebel. Yeah. Yeah. It's funny.
I'm an expert now. I'm figuring it out.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. The art class
But
is one of my faves. I would get high at lunch every single day, and then go to art class. I got straight A's. She thought I was a rock star, and she had no idea where my
yeah,
inspiration was
I
sourced at that
swear
point.
we had the most strictest art teacher in high school. And I was like, lady, this is supposed to be way more creative. Now that, like, I love doing cityscapes and things like that because it's precise. I have this whole Eiffel Tower where I did very highly detailed underneath this the scaling of the actual arches and every. Oh, it's beautiful.
Nice.
I love stuff like that. But when this lady's telling me, no, you need to draw what's in front of you, and I want you to draw, I'm like, that's not fun.
Mm.
Where's I get it. I understand the concept behind it, but I almost failed the damn class because I didn't want to do what she asked me to. I thought it was stupid. And I'm like, I'm not pouring my energy into something I think is stupid. Sorry. I don't know. But that's how I'm envisioning you doing the work prior for your family's company. And maybe it was just because it was around all of these intricate little details that didn't allow you to the freedom to kind of maneuver in a way that you maybe would have wanted to, like what you're doing with your friend Garrett, or Grant. I forget which one it was, but
Garrett.
I apologize. Garrett. Okay, I had it right the first time. Whereas now you want to be there. It's part of something you kind of got pulled into
Believe
it,
in.
but you're
Okay.
not doing it just because you have to do it. You're not working around these little boxes and intricating into it. And I think I don't know. That's what I took from that story. Maybe if
100%.
oh
100%.
okay.
Yeah, it's a really worthy purpose. It's something that like and how do you know something's a worthy purpose, just to give you a little clue, is that it's full of life energy. And
Yes.
and so for me it's a process of elimination, the sacred purpose, and this is what I teach in that course is by it's if we stay on the art metaphor, that the sculpture is in the wood. Every artist knows that
Mm.
you're not creating something, it's already there. You're just pulling off all the wood that's not that sculpture.
You're
And so
finding it. Like you're finding it in there.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So it's getting down to like what is not me. Now this is super esoteric. Forgive me if I go off the rails here, but there's very very little of what we think to be ourself that is actually ourself. And how do I know? Is because if you can let it go, it's not me. There are things I can't let go of. And when I let go of them, I gain freedom, but they get stronger. And this is the energy of sacred purpose. And then it has kind of a life of its own. It literally, I can go, just from the release process, just from emptying myself, all of a sudden the energy is on the heels. It's creating before I even know what's happening. My body's moving. I'm going to the pen. I'm writing something down. The whole, whatever it is, blooms in my brain and starts to manifest. So that's it. It's just a process of elimination, and again, learning to live potentially every moment from this place of sacred purpose, based on simple release tools.
I really like this.
Awesome, awesome. This is so fun.
That's why when you came on that panel the other night and I saw it because you had your website and I was like, oh, let me go check that out. And I went and I looked at it and I was like, what is all of this nice stuff? Like
Mm,
I don't know. I'm not to say that I believe in astrology or I believe in anything like crystals or whatever kind of crazy stuff, but I do believe that there is a way you can tap into your best qualities, your worst qualities, and figuring out those little tidbits. I used to do uh like meditative what is it? Can't find my words today. Hypnotherapy.
okay.
Hypnotherapy. And it was the best thing I ever did for myself to let myself mentally sleep and tap into those things that were really bothering me because I couldn't bring it up to the surface. I didn't want to bring it up to the surface. And this was kind of the only way I could get it there. And stuff like this, I think everyone has their different ways of finding those things underneath it all. But I think knowing that there's so many more tools because we're all different, we're all individuals, we all operate differently. Hypnotherapy works for me, but it might not work for anybody else. Um, some people have to draw it out, some people have to run it out, some people have to actually sit and write a list and explain it out. But this tool that you're providing is a beautiful way of, especially for organized people. I notice you're a very organized person,
Thank you.
and for somebody to be able to visually see it, read it, understand it, test it, and knowing that they have a guardrails and a map to help guide them through it. I think it's just beautiful all in and of itself.
That's awesome. Really good. Yeah, there's so many tools right now. There was a day when there just wasn't, it wasn't common. These tools in particular, I have tried a lot of things. Hypnotherapy, oddly enough, not one of the, I can't be hypnotized.
Oh,
I
I
think
I
there's
go deep.
good for you.
It's a
Yeah,
very small percentage of people that could do it, but I could. Yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
that's nice. Nice. So we're in a sea of tools and methods and processes and step by steps and all of that kind of thing right now, and they are useful at times where you just need you need the bridge, you need the thing to get you through. But these tools, the roots of them are in the work of Lester Levinson. I never did meet him, but I studied with a bunch of his teachers and was certified as a coach in that release process that they were teaching. I have since adapted it and I've married it with the archetype work because the two are the perfect pair where you find the shadow, you're really precise, you know exactly what it is, and then you can go in. It's a little bit, I don't want to say surgical, but it's got that kind of precision to it. And then you go and take out the level and layers of programming that are holding it in place. And you said a very big key thing about bringing things to the surface. That's the main reason that people can't heal, because it doesn't come to awareness. You can't actually heal what you can't experience. And so that's part of the process that is the trickier. So I always say, like, not everybody can make use of this work. I'm guessing that based on our conversation today that you actually can, because I can see the depths. Although sometimes it's surprising too that when I've had people do this work for even years in a certain role, and then they hit a place where they're not willing to go past, and they don't want to feel what's on the other side. And they go on vacation, they take a break, or that's like, okay, I'm out of here. Get too much freedom, because actually freedom registers as dangerous, the most dangerous thing.
I look at it as people are afraid to be vulnerable. You have to be vulnerable to yourself, and that's
Yeah,
scary because we are our own worst enemy. We are our own worst critic. We don't want to face the mirror most of the time.
yeah,
We don't want to see that we're ugly on the inside, or that we did something wrong, or that we do things the wrong way. Like I said earlier, I may not always be right, but I'm certainly never wrong, right? Like, and most people, like, knowing that, it's hard to swallow that pill of, I might have to fix something. I might have to change something. And you have to be willing to be vulnerable, to kind of let go of the reins and say, all right, have at it. Let it go. And what we don't realize is that with that vulnerability comes a really sore part. I had to go through this sore part not long ago, but maybe a few years ago. But I had to go through this really sore part in my life of bringing all of this stuff up to the surface, stuff that I had stuffed down for over a decade, right? But what I realized is it was causing so many more problems than good, and the ability to surface level it, look at it in the face and say, that's wrong, this, that, I hate this, I don't like this about myself, yada, 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 whatever, whatever. And then poof, there it goes. Now I was literally free. You speak of this freedom concept. I was literally free from all of that stuff that had been weighing me down, but I was so afraid to face that vulnerability. I was so afraid to look myself in the mirror and say, you're not perfect. Like, something is wrong with you. There are things you have to do better, you have to fix. And that scared the shit out of me, realistically speaking, because with change, it's like, well, who am I going to be on the other side? How do I know it's going to be better? How do I know we're going to do better or feel better? And that's scary.
yeah. It registers as death to the unconscious. Any kind of shift or change or growing or freedom and everything like that. Yeah. And then I just wanted to point out also that like that word vulnerable, it's definitely a child word, and that's not a put down by any means. And then you
Mhm.
use that phrase, something's wrong with me. It's actually one of the key programs that the child suffers. It's a version of the formidable not good enough program. I'm
Mhm.
not good enough. You're not good enough. And I'm good enough. Versions of the program. As you go up the scale and the spiral, it gets higher and higher. And then so yeah, the child has that basic foundational belief programming that something's wrong with me, or can, not that they have to have that by any means. and and so yeah, that's and it's the punchline of every single program is the end of life.
Mhm.
That's the threat. Like I need to go and have nothing be wrong with me, or I have to act like nothing's wrong with me, so I can be good in the eyes of others, and they won't push me out of society or out of the job or out of the family or out of my safe zone where I'm going
Mhm.
to secure life, which is a big fat illusion because we all don't survive at the end anyway.
There is no security. There is no guarantee. There is no, I mean,
Yeah.
there's always, I think of it like I don't know, what would you say? A Fort Knox even has ways you can crack in, right? I don't know those ways. I'm sure some other nerd would. But Fort Knox, even as strong and sturdy and perfected as it might be, as it protects, all of this money or whatever the case may be, still has a vulnerability somewhere, and cracks and creeks can dig in and break into that. So the idea of security is pseudo. It's false. It's a false belief. I would say for anyone, but it
Yeah.
feels good feeling as secure as we possibly can. Right.
Right, it's an illusion. It doesn't feel good at all when you really drill down to the root of that. Security and insecurity are the same vibration. So that's
Mhm.
kind of off the, it can be too esoteric, but there's you start to distinguish between that, what you thought was a good feeling of being secure, and the, because it's all in the opposite world where the want for safety promises safety, or wanting for security program promises security, and it feels like it's going to give it to you, so we cling to it like it's life itself, and it's not, and it drains the life. So there's a lot of confusion about what we consider to be secure. The only thing secure about life is its source. That the you can't, when you know you're free. I don't even know if I would use the word secure. It's not like that. It's just like you described, how the unpredictability of life, and we're in the realm of gain and loss. There's no way around that.
Mhm.
So there's always going to be something to make us vulnerable.
Kind of like the only thing consistent is change.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
forget. Did we have a hard lock time with you? I don't
I
remember.
don't have a hard stop, but I was wondering, did you mention that we were going to do some Q&A?
Yes. Let me, if you don't mind, I just need to use the ladies' room and
Of
top off
course.
my coffee.
Okay.
In the meantime, if you want to, we'll bring anyone that wants to come on and ask questions. We'll bring you on one at a time to get through your questions and move on. But I do want to tap into that feminism,
Oh, yes.
masculinity topic.
Yeah.
And you're welcome to drop that StreamYard link here. I'll put it backstage if you want it on ease of access. You can drop that in your chat if anybody wants to come on and jump and ask a question on your end.
Okay.
But I do have to use the ladies' room, and then we'll move into if anybody hops backstage, we'll do Q&A. But otherwise, we'll move into that feminism, masculine topic, and then we'll roll from there.
Okay, sounds good. I'll take a very short break myself.
Okay, everyone, hang out. I'll play some little light music for you, and we'll be right back. Okay. All right. You are still muted, by the way.
Yes.
Oh, I don't know how streamers can sit there for like 3-4 hours without taking up. Maybe it's just because being a mom, things are different. but but I can never. But like after the first hour, I'm like, okay, I have to find a moment to use the ladies' room. Let me actually turn the music back down. Um, all right. So the link, I think I dropped. Did I drop it on my side? Okay.
You
Oh, did I?
did.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
did.
Yeah. I just shared it on my Telegram. So if anyone's listening, I don't know how to get into my StreamYard without Xing out of this one. So
Oh, you could actually, if you drop it directly in that group, the live chat,
Mhm.
on your end, it will come up as a link for them. On my end, it'll just be text, but on your, it'll automatically drop in for
Perfect.
them.
Perfect.
Okay, so if anybody wants to come on, cool. If you don't, that's fine too. We will have, I'll get through the super chat thoughts too at the tail end. But you had this big piece in writing The King's Journey, of course. In the intro, I was just taken aback by it because I was like, wow, this is so right. And it's so relevant to a lot of what society is facing today. But your biggest part was when I was younger, I thought basically man bad, man trying to tell me what to do. Stop it. I'm independent. I can do what I want. XYZ, XYZ, fill in the blanks with any typical feministic talking points. And I thought, oh my God, I've been here. I know this feeling. I know exactly what it is. And when you wake up and you realize, oh, men aren't good. I've just been trained to think otherwise, or the world around me, the environment that I'm built on. You specifically mentioned listening to your mom get angry because your dad left his socks on the floor or this or that. But then when you look back in hindsight, you realize, no, he was out busy providing for the family. He didn't have time to worry about a damn sock on the floor. Tell me about this a little more in thought process and in detail of kind of where that really triggered to look backwards and say, wait a minute, men, there is a masculine side because you originally named it the Queen's archetype, but then changed it to the King's.
Oh, you're good, Sarah.
Let's dive in. Tell me all about it.
Exactly. I tried to feminize the king because the archetypes, this work all comes through me with some outside inspiration that I take in and then find things. I have to find it inside myself. Like a true alchemist, I can't be told here's what it is and just believe it. So my biggest fear was being controlled by a man. That was something that it took me a long time to see, but I did see it thanks to the release work. And I started to unpack that, and I still made a train wreck of my last relationship as a result of it because, I was being the masculine. I came from that corporate world where I wore a suit, and I was nicknamed a ball breaker in the industry. That I didn't know that until I left. They would tell me like, Beth, by the way, do you know that was your nickname? And I'm like, oh darn, that's not good. And it really took the death of my father for me to totally see it in Technicolor. Because when he was gone, and this man that I had railed against, not entirely, but to a great extent, my whole entire life, when he was gone, and I got to see what the war, where the war really was, and it was inside myself with my own masculine. I
Mhm.
was not at peace with. And so I was acting out this this masculine aspect to try to compensate for what I felt that I lacked. This is all unconscious. None of this takes place at a conscious level.
Can I dive into that piece for a moment?
Sure.
Because if women are being masculine or chiming into their masculine energy, would that in turn make them competitive now with men instead?
Right. Exactly. That's the problem, is that we're vying for these, basically control and domination and all of the things that a man does really well. Those sound like terrible qualities, but they're amazing actually when you get a man who's in control. wow, that's like a
It
beautiful
is
thing.
beautiful.
It
It
is
is
beautiful,
beautiful.
right?
Instant, like starry-eyed. Oh my God, he's so handsome because he told me exactly what to do. In a
Right,
good way.
right.
In a good way, right? It's
Yep.
like, you mean I didn't have to think of that myself? I didn't have to make a decision. You just said, do this, go there, and sit. And it's the most relieving feeling in the world when somebody can take over that thought process for you as a woman, right? As a man, I don't think I'd think too kindly to that. But in a woman's perspective, it's like,
Exactly. Yeah, because then you can relax into your feminine and
yes.
be that perfect complement to the masculine that is it's the marriage made in heaven, right? That's to me one of the ultimate formulas that God created in our patterning, that
Mhm.
these two archetypes that are really not two archetypes, they only are in existence with respect to each other, right? You take away the masculine, there's no feminine. You take away the feminine, there's no masculine. There's
Makes sense.
yeah, you can't separate them. And so it's the most powerful union of all is this archetype, the masculine feminine. And that's why it's under such enormous attack and has been maligned. And then they went for the whole role reversal where they made women hungry to be men. They made us hungry for equality, to be the same as men. Well, that's to reject the whole feminine side of your nature, which is dominant when you're born as a woman. That's just how nature works. And then yeah, so like I thought I invented feminism. I was on the soapbox, and I was very very sure of myself that all of the problems in the world were because of a man, and that if you just took men out of the equation and let women rule, then everything could get better. And when I saw through that illusion, it was just like, really? How could I even possibly think that? Never mind that I invented this.
Right?
And all of a sudden, I started to see men in a way that I just had a natural respect. Now, of course, everybody into their own merit, and you know there are crappy men, and that's just like they've been damaged or whatever. Like that is a reality. So it's not the wool over your eyes or the rose-colored glasses, but a basic respect for the half of humanity that birthed the king hero for me. That's where the king hero's journey came from. That was a whole new unfoldment of my work, just post on the heels of my dad dying, and my mom died very closely after that. So it was a complete renaissance of my life, my work, and a kind of a redemption project, actually, to make up for all of the pain in the neck that I had been, to put it lightly, and the
Mhm.
nemesis to men in my life that I was.
Wow. So what because I feel like this is problematic for women. We were just discussing this the other night actually. Where I even somebody even talked to me today and said like I couldn't believe that what you had said last night and why people aren't seeing it that way. But like women growing up, especially in the more recent decades, we're kind of taught this concept of be as strong as, if not stronger. Be your own independent person. You have to go to college. You have to take care of yourself because if your husband leaves you, you're left with nothing. Right. And we're taught these things as a protective, preemptive measure, as a just in case policy. But what we've seen spawn from that instead is women saying, no, I got this. I got this. So inevitably men are being emasculated because now they don't have a purpose. There is no more purpose for a man. You don't have to take care of the woman in your life. You don't have to even take care of your children because the mom's got it. It'll be fine. Not to say all men do that, but it's you lose purpose. Just the same as I said before about the birth of a child and how a man goes from a man to a father almost instantaneously. And for some of them, it's a very magical, empowering moment. And they like switch gears and say, like, I got to get a light lit up underneath my ass to get this going. So women, we've just been kind of propagandized, and that's the narrative, and that's what's being painted, and we're just looking at the picture saying, oh, okay, well, that's what I need to do. uh and I see a lot of people actually blaming today's current women uh for that problem, but I don't think it's necessarily their fault. They just, that's all we were taught. So if on a surface level that's all you know, well, how would I know there's a whole nother side of this coin?
Right, right, exactly. And that's why it took major calamity, loss of my father and loss of relationship to awaken to it. So yeah, it's not a process of blaming, but just seeing it for what it is, back to radical responsibility. Okay, well, now I see the problem. What can I do? What could I take out in myself that's cooperating with this illusion and this bad knowledge?
Hmm.
The biggest, what you could call, casualty of the whole thing is the depolarization of the male female relationship, where women were trained, or I thought, my dream was that I would attract a man who would support my purpose
Hmm.
and help me fuel it along, because I'm just this little one person, and I need a man to come and really put some rocket fuel in the engine there. And it was the worst thing ever that he got, and he did support my purpose a lot. And the polarization of the relationship died because I was like fully in the masculine and he was more fully in the feminine
Because
support.
that is a feminine thing to do, is to support. We are the supporters of the purpose. But
That's
if
right.
you had a purpose and he was supporting it, then that's completely backwards from kind of the nature of things.
Exactly. And in the process, I lost respect for him, which is tragic. I got what I wanted, but it wasn't what I thought.
Hmm.
And yeah, so back to the
So,
redemption.
so in that aspect, then, where, I mean, aside from having a come to Jesus moment and figuring all of this out, where do you think we could adjust or fix, or if you have a prescription for that, to change that dynamic and to allow women to go back into, because, and I look at it this way, we do have a lot of men in today's society who are very feminine, right? And I don't think it's to any fault of their own. They just are. They've been emasculated. They've been, you even mentioned in your story of uh, women teaching them kindness and love and nurturing. And the reality is that they shouldn't necessarily have, they should have empathy, they should have benevolence for the women and children in their lives. I believe that. The only tender, caring touch should be towards their wife or their children, but everyone else is a direct threat. And they should be able to handle and take care of business and make decisions knowing what is or is not best for their families. But if they're all raised to be loving and kind and not necessarily even good natured, because that could still be in a masculine energy, but too soft, and we're seeing that come to a crux of an entire generation of men who can't even stand up and defend themselves, if anything. So I feel like women are going one way to help, almost maybe they are supporting that man's purpose, but in a different way. Actually, hold on. Let
See
me
how
think
it
about this.
blurs? It's like amazing.
Yeah, hold on, because if a man's new purpose is to just support the women and being the big boss babes and independent, then women are actually supporting that man's purpose by supporting her purpose, and it's kind of, maybe we're all just in our feminine roles in a weird way. I don't
Yeah, it's
know.
like there's a difference between the man supporting the women and the children
Hmm.
compared to the man supporting the women and children's purpose.
Hmm.
I think that's where the direction of the feminine towards supporting the masculine purpose, that feeds back and makes that man want to love and care for those, take care of, because the nurture is very real for the man as well as
Hmm.
the the woman. And then so yeah, the funneling, because again, I expected a man to nurture my purpose, and that was just completely backwards. So yeah, you just described Canada as far as the feminine men on the whole, like and our inability to stand up. That's again the king hero call. Like, where are y'all, guys? We need you
Oh,
big time right now. Because
yeah. It
yeah,
well,
wow,
and maybe that is the man's new purpose, is to not stand up, right? And to be complacent. Not that that's a good thing by any means, but they the lack of purpose leads to this purpose of, nah, I'm just gonna work with what I got and roll with it and see what happens. And maybe women are inevitably supporting that purpose by, well, I'll pick up the slack. You mentioned, I believe it was India. Was it in India, your trip to India, and the carrying the bricks over, and the women just carrying the bricks over and doing the work in an entire day. And it was heavy lifting and took several hours because there was only a few of you, whereas the men and the boys were just lingering about, having fun, doing whatever they wanted. And the women were over here doing all of the labor. Um, but in essence, weren't you supporting their purpose of being leisurely to some degree by just picking up the slack where they were failing?
right. But what does the net result of that is that the women are more masculine, and so
Hmm.
they have more control over the social environment, the family, how resources are literally moved when you're talking about bricks from one
Hmm.
place to another. And then so it's not sustainable. It's not
Hmm.
like the natural flow of energy if men had, and that was a strange thing in India, where the men really had no purpose, and the men often didn't mature beyond the mentality of 10 years old. Like, that country is actually really easy to navigate because men are so easy to intimidate. They're, they're not really adults in some ways. Like, sorry to be just so, um, what
Blunt. It's okay.
generalization, blunt. Yeah, yeah, it's a crazy one. So it gave a lot of grief, and the proof of it was the misery. So the women had all the power, but they had all the misery. Men had the leisure and the, like, kind of childlike happiness, but they didn't have the power that would be the natural masculine, that is a true happiness, like true purposeful, because that's a difference. You can have happiness without purpose, and it's
Mhm.
like empty, it's fake and gay. There's no foundation, doesn't grow anything. And yeah, so yeah.
So essentially, a man taking power and control, not necessarily in a bad way, but is being established, protecting his family, having a purpose to, uh, support his family, so on and so forth. That is power derived from being the leader of your home, the king of your own castle per se, and that power actually turns into a natural form of happiness for a man, that isn't pseudo, it isn't false, it isn't like a child, for instance. But when a woman gets put in that position, uh, you said it's miserable. I could agree with that. I could, because if somebody just came into my home right now, a perfectly good man that's, um, you know, I don't know, 6'2", handsome, whatever. But
Okay.
right, but just came into my home and was able to just take all of that weight off of my shoulders and allow me to say, that would be happiness for me, right? Because carrying that weight around and having to have strong shoulders, I do find that to be miserable. It's not fun. I wouldn't sign up for this twice. Not at all. And I think somebody put it this way once: women have bigger hips, right? Because we are bearing children and all of those things, and we can sit on our rear and enjoy more leisurely, so on and so forth. But men have strong shoulders. because they can carry the actual weight of the world on their shoulders, whereas women, we can't. I mean, we'll do it if we have to, if we're put in that position, but I don't believe that we would truly choose to do that if we had the option.
Right. It's unnatural. You can do it and you can train yourself and you can let go of any unnecessary misery around it. That's been kind of the story of my life too, that I'm in a disnatured reality where, the way that I'm being in my life, but certainly make the best of it and call in that feminine energy in different ways. And I've seen definitely an evolution and it's amazing to me when I think about how I used to see men. It's just I can't even go there. I can't even manufacture that anymore to uh, to hate them or think there's something inherently wrong with them or anything like that. So
So, I mean, what if what if you didn't start with that immediate, because it sounds like you were a little tainted in the beginning to begin with. You saw your mom getting onto your dad for things and very specific dynamics that were worked into that. What if you never had any of those? Do you think your viewpoint on men would have been different?
right. I think it would have been based on actual reality and merit rather than the narrative that trickled down through the women, right? Giving
Mhm.
those messages that, oh, my husband doesn't do any work or he doesn't take the garbage out or he doesn't do this, not giving credit to all of the incredible work and responsibility and intensity that they would go to keep a house and food on the table and all of that kind of thing. It's very big. So yeah, I think without all those influences of the culture and the propaganda to back it up, that it would have been a much more natural kind of a thing. Like my mom was not really a feminist, but she had internalized it enough to be a part of that culture of complaining about men.
Mhm. That makes sense. I mean, and that's a very well painted narrative. I mean, I've heard more about it now than I probably ever did realize, or at least realized. Like my mom was a stay at home mom. She worked a little part time just for extra stuff, but she was a stay at home mom. She loved my dad. You know, when dad came home for dinner, it was out on the table. I grew up, I would say, very traditionally to start off with, and things changed when as I became a teenager, but I don't feel like I had that narrative growing up, aside from external influences. Like, and I always say this one, but Nike had that commercial of anything you can do, I can do better. And it was a female competing with a man, right? And I remember thinking, like, oh, that's cool. Like, we can be like the guys, we could do this. We could be like them and outrun them. And there's a lot of things where I can do that is better than a man. But I was taught that by external influences, whereas on the internal, uh, my father was the solid rock of the family. He like, and you knew when stuff was going down, like you were in trouble, and that was the disciplinary, and what dad said goes. So it it's kind of like which came first, the chicken or the egg, in a lot of ways. I mean, I know feminism dragged in a lot of this stuff with talking points, but did men start getting, I would say, maybe a lack of a better term, but weaker, emasculating, and doing like in today's generation, we see a lot of them just not having purpose and not being the men that we like traditional men? Or did women become so independent that men lost their purpose? Or did women not start becoming independent until men stopped taking care of them? Right? Chicken or the egg kind of concept. Or did it happen naturally on its own in cycle?
I don't know exactly, but I did want to say about how they appeal to a very hidden part of ourself that is hungry for oneness.
Mhm.
And they threw in the pseudo oneness called sameness as the goal, that you can be the same as a man. You're equal to a man.
Mhm.
And so this appeals to this, I consider it to be our core wound of separation, where we become, I mean, that's, you know, a more normal part of development. That's when you're born, you're, you know, that cord is going to get cut, and there'll come a time where you have to start gaining some independence, hopefully not right away or anything. That to me is awful psyop by itself. But this appeal to oneness where people fall for it, and that's why where that expression misery loves company comes in, that you're happier when you go and you make someone else miserable like you. There's a weird happiness in that, a weird kind of sick satisfaction that now you have two miserable people and you're more one at the level of misery. But that's not oneness at all. That's sameness. Right. And so that to me is the big thing. And guess what? The superpower of the masculine feminine archetype is wholeness.
Ooh.
And that's the true oneness, is wholeness, is like that everything is included.
Mm-hmm. But you can't have wholeness if you're both in the wrong place, I guess. Like if I'm doing a job that that's how I view it. If I'm doing a job I'm not qualified for, and you're doing a job that you're not qualified for, and we try to come together and as a team do this thing, it's probably not going to get done. It's not going to work out well. That nobody's winning here, so on and so forth. But if we actually switch roles and say, okay, I'm going to do a job I'm actually qualified for, and you're going to do a job you're actually qualified for, we will actually get everything done well, complete, and done probably efficiently, ahead of schedule, and we'll make a bunch of money doing it. And if we look at men and women, that's where that piece comes in. I'm right now in my current status, I am doing a job I'm not qualified for. I am doing a man's job. I am taking care of my kids, and I'm doing the single mom thing, and I'm just working so much ridiculously, and making sure that they are provided and protected for, which is not my job, but I'm doing it because it needs to get done, right? Whereas if I had the amazing 6'2", handsome, charming man here, right, doing that job, then I can actually focal point in on doing my job as a mother and as a woman, and I would probably be much more happier in a lot of different aspects, because I can be more leisurely. I can be oblivious to the threats of the household, to the threats of society, to the threats of finances, or so on and so forth, and let a man take that on, because that is his job and he's more qualified to handle those stresses. Right. So we're just all doing the wrong job.
Totally. Yeah, that's the psyop. Exactly. You got it.
Oh man. So tie that in with the archetypes in terms of because I know it led into the king's archetype, but I'm sure it ties into a lot of it used to, even the nurturers and so on and so forth. Let's tie that in and put a pretty bow on it for our people here. Uh, if you're doing the wrong job, I know we have purpose, right? But if we're doing the wrong job that we're not meant to do, can that dismantle your archetype journey and where you're going and what you're doing, so on and so forth?
Luckily, nothing can dismantle the archetype journey, but it can go deeper and deeper into shadow and represent a greater and greater loss of energy that might crescendo in some, brush with death or whatever. But so yeah, it's a matter of we really only have two choices: to cooperate with purpose, to cooperate with life, or default in the cooperating with the decay of life, which we call death. And so there's some people might say there's no free will based on that. I'm actually going to be hosting Tom Barnett on tomorrow right away. Yeah, like in less than 24 hours on that exact subject of free will, which is my favorite. It is highly nuanced. But yeah, I mean, if we're able to, it's one of the places that I feel so passionate about, that if men and women can get into their roles with each other at many different levels. It doesn't have to just be, like I feel like sometimes I don't need to change or fix my situation in order to see this kind of change, like that the awakening, even if I'm going through the mechanics of being more of a king in my world, that there's still full capacity for awareness and healing. So it's not lost, but yeah, the potential of men and women really working together and being and playing to their own strengths. And it's not necessarily a life of leisure on the feminine. It's just different. It's different kind of work, right?
Right.
And
It's a more I think, I mean, by saying leisure, it's there's, I would say, walking into some new place with a man, right? And there's a big meme about this. Like the man is looking, okay, I got exit, exit, people, like potential threat that and all this stuff is going through his head. Whereas she's walking next to him, beep, 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 singing a song in her head because it's not her job, right? Her job is to be by his side and trust him that he's doing his job in that moment. And I think mentally it's more leisurely for a woman because we're not built to view those things. We're not built to do that. Not that we can't, but we're not built for it. That creates a lot of stress inside the brain because we're already complex up here. We don't need to add any more buckets to the list. And there's a lot of different buckets up here that move around. And so if we can remove a few buckets out of that, like it's like, okay, I can just be. And that's what I mean by leisurely, mentally.
That's beautiful. Beautiful.
So okay, so and my final thought to that is, and this is maybe just the big piece of it all, with the feminine and the masculine energy, and if everybody did their job and everybody worked through their archetypes and everybody got to this place of purpose, let's just pretend all of the world did this. What would we see different? Why would we all improve or not improve or be a better place, or how would society look if everybody actually did this inner work and came out working on through their where they're putting their energy, their purpose, so on and so forth? What's that beautiful picture look like at the end of it all?
Amazing question. So I will start by saying, like, first of all, I don't imagine that everybody can do it. I don't, it's like, it's possible, but not probable. But if enough people do it, then what that does is create polarity. It's the same kind of thing that's lacking in the masculine feminine. When you have polarity, then people either choose with you or they choose against you. Say in the example that I used with my son when I did all that inner work, it actually could have gone either way. He could have fully rejected me at that time. And there, I have no control over that. That's why freedom is so, one of the reasons freedom is so scary, because it's so polarizing. And the person that has internally decided, like, nope, I'm not going there, they're going to have more distance. And then but it gives the people that are just simply looking for, okay, how do I know I need to get to this purposeful life, but I don't know how. Then they will use you as a way to, maybe vibrate in a higher energy, which has the function, not of being the cure, but has the function of, maybe you're more courageous. Maybe you can take more action. Maybe you have more acceptance. So you're not caught in all the petty division and conflict, and you have more peace. So there's a certain attractiveness in that. And then it basically, what the vision I have is that when people slave to their purpose, because if we're on slave planet, I mean, I know it's kind of debatable, but it seems like it, right? We have to pay to live. And if I decided, if I have to slave to something, I will be a slave to purpose. That's what I'm a slave to. And if you get a critical mass of people who slave to purpose, they're uncontrollable.
Oh, right, because you're not going to get in my way. You're not part of my purpose. Get out of my way.
That's it. You don't answer to it. I answer to purpose. I could say it, same thing. I answer to God. I don't answer to the government. I don't answer to fake authorities, right? I'm effectively uncontrollable. I mean, I'm not making that claim 100%,
Mhm.
to a degree,
Right.
right?
Within your you are still technically limited, right? You're not gonna go streaking at a football game just because it's your purpose, right? But
Huh.
but I mean, essentially, there are some limitations that you have to work within because that you're part of society and you have to accept some piece of that to a degree.
Right.
But still, you can still maneuver around as best as you can and say, "This is my purpose, get out of my way."
Right, exactly. And I saw it in our COVID days that nobody showed up on my doorstep to tell me what to put on my face or what to
Mhm,
put in my body. Like nobody told me what to do. And I was relatively uncontrollable. Why? Because I'm willing to take responsibility for myself. I don't have a boss. I don't have, I haven't, put those authorities in power over me. It's one of the reasons I have a lot of admiration, right? You could do a lot of different things, but you went the entrepreneurial route. And
mhm.
and so that gives you a lot more control in the process. And so, yeah, that's what I see. A bunch of purposeful people are the most dangerous thing. That's why they want everybody in a job that they hate and slaving and just, working for survival rather than working for the true purpose, which includes
Oh
survival.
my god. That all oh my god, we just hit a trigger point. You're giving me epiphanies all day. We need to talk more often.
I love that.
That makes perfect sense because if you're too busy trying to survive just by working for me or working for this or working to pay your taxes or whatever, you're not going to go out and find your purpose and truly thrive with the person and the individual that you are. You're actually going to be too busy doing this 9 to 5, this stupid work that doesn't I mean, there are people who do have occupations that they do love, right? I would imagine more in the art department of, film film directors, editors, people that are actually like, "This is what I wanna do," right? I enjoy this, but, like, okay. Um
It's nice. And I just wanna also, in case anybody feels bad about this, because you can still micro down with purpose and again, it's about being purposeful, not finding a purpose so that
Mhm.
my business is my purpose. No, someone could come along with a, metaphorical bulldozer and blow it down, like, cancel the internet or make it impossible for me to interact with my people on the internet, and I'm done for that purpose. Like,
Mhm.
that's literally done, but does my purpose die? No.
Right.
It's going to evolve and find a new way to express. So even within a job that you don't like, you can build purpose into it. And that's like a momentary decision kind of thing. Again, all a process of elimination, letting the shit go so that you can see what's really in front of you and where purpose calls us in every single mundane moment as well. It's not all the fireworks and the perfect business or whatever it is. It's not like that. It has a way because it's the for me freedom and purpose are the same thing, right? That it's the same principle that if you're uncontrollable in that state of freedom, that's not a state. But that's the thing that if we do that work, then it's miraculous how things can evolve. And if it's truly meant for you to not, be in that place, you are going to get the motivation and the impetus, or the opportunity is just going to show up, or you're going to get fired. How
Yeah.
many times people have come to me to help them transition from a job to a business, because I also do business coaching for people who want a life purpose kind of business, not to sell widgets, but they're like so mad at their job and dissatisfied by their job, and for good reasons. But as long as they're rejecting that job in any kind of purposeful place that they have, they almost inevitably end up going back to the stupid job. It's
Right.
it's yeah, but if they gain their freedom in the job, then they're much more likely to be able to, move away from it. Or those that were so frightened of leaving and then they get fired. It was like, oh, I guess I'm leaving. But it didn't seem like it was their choice.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I feel like I've had that recent experience with realizing why am I doing this work for someone else? Like it didn't it tapped into my purpose, which I'm the connector. We kind of talked about that earlier. It really tapped into that thing that I do really well and I enjoy doing it. It tapped into that, but it kept coming down to like, why am I turning up for you? Because by turning up for you, I'm not turning up for me.
Right.
And I started realizing there was kind of a sheep mentality to it, and I didn't feel good doing it anymore. I used to do it because I didn't think I had any other options. And then I discovered this free will of YouTube and realized I can do it better for myself and still be driving home that thing that I do best. And I think that's a really big piece for people is not realizing you have the ability to do it for yourself and not for somebody else. Not to say that doing it for someone else isn't still meaningful in whatever comes. Some people don't want the risk of um, being in charge. They don't feel like they can be a leader, or they don't want to be a leader. They don't want to, take on the entrepreneurship realm. But it's still the idea of like you have to know and understand where your energy is going, like kind of what you were saying, and is it still does it still feel good doing it for somebody else versus if you did it for yourself? And I had that teeter totter between the two and realized I like doing the one that's for me the most. This feels good. I'm my own boss. I make my own schedule. I do my own things, and I'm still doing what I enjoy and I have fun with it, and it's good, like that's the direction I want to go. And I think that some people get caught. It did take a lot. It was a big uh scary decision.
Of course, the hero's journey is terrifying.
Oh God, everything's terrifying. I'm afraid. Listen, Linda. I'm so afraid of everything all the time. All the time. People don't believe I'm shy. People don't believe I'm afraid to call and order pizza. People don't believe I'm afraid to I'm afraid of everything all the time, especially people. People scare the shit out of me, you know. But that's the overcoming part. Even sitting here down with you, like it takes so much for me to build up and do it. But once you get into it, you realize, okay, it's not that scary, right? But I'm afraid all the time, and I don't know. I don't know. I'll leave.
I get it. No, that's very, very honest of you. Most people will say the opposite, that they're not afraid, and that's called suppression. Because again, at the root of all of the human experiences is fear programming. It just is. We glorify it, but that's the real true nature of it. And so to have awareness of it is fantastic. And there's different ways to approach it. Some people really get stuck in that door, and they, like the lovers, they will get stuck in their emotional doors, and they glorify the door and say the door is so great. It's like, no, you're jammed in the door, lady, or but I don't feel that from you. It's that willingness. That the big thing I noticed in your notes from before, that one of the things maybe we promised was a practice, or a technique or tool, something that people could use. And if there's one thing that people could take away from today and practice on potentially a moment to moment basis, or even try it for 5 minutes, I dare anyone to try this for 5 minutes, is to want freedom. And then everyone might say, oh, I want freedom. Of course I want freedom. What are you, retarded? And the reality is, no, you want everything else more than freedom. You want survival, you want security, you want love, you want approval, you want control, you want all of these things. You want oneness and wholeness. You want that more than you want freedom. And if you can practice diligently wanting freedom, that becomes like a vacuum. Freedom starts to pull you
Yeah.
forward. And be careful also what you wish for, right? Because that doesn't,
Right.
you don't know what freedom looks like. We have no idea. It's total mystery. But I'm
You
here to
know,
tell you it's the way to go.
the best example I can come up with, and this is, I am thankful for meeting so many people, right? Especially on the internet, and people teach you all sorts of different stuff. And me, I'm a sponge. I just love to harness personalities and value systems, not take their value systems, but see people's value systems and principles and things they believe in. And he may not know it, but one person that I'm the most envious of is the Powder Dusty. I don't know, Flow State. I don't know if you know him.
For sure.
Benjamin's buddy. Yeah. So I am so envious of his ability to not give a shit
Mm.
about schedules, organization. You know, you and I, we were discussing earlier, like calendars, and it was just like, oh God, she's just like me. This is beautiful. This is so well. But his ability to say, I'm just going to show up when I show up, and that's exactly when I'm going to show up, right? I don't need to calendar things because I'm going to show up when I want to, right? And it's
That's
almost like,
actually more feminine, you know, that's a feminine quality that he's sorry, Dustin,
really?
if he's listening to me. Oh yeah,
Well,
because it's the feminine chaos and the masculine order. So we're very ordered, but we couldn't do our jobs without
ah,
that. Right?
right.
My world would fall apart. In fact,
Mm.
quite often I'm creating the masculine container for the feminine to come in and be chaotic and creative in. Right? So that's
So is that why I'm so envious of his ability to be pure chaos?
maybe. Yeah, yeah. It's no offense at all. I like him.
I'm
He was
so
very nice to
sending
me.
him that clip.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, he's expressing more the feminine, and that's
Oh,
yeah,
that's hilarious. But
yeah,
see, I look at it because he has this newfound freedom. He quit his banker thing. He did all these things and just doesn't want to do the standard I'm working for somebody else. Um and I found that quality to be completely polar opposite of me because I was like, no, I'm compliant. I do job. I show up to work. It's 9 to 5. I do this, I do that. And in out of discussions with him, I realized there was a piece of what he has that I'm like, that's what I need. Like,
right.
that's what I want is that freedom to be able to uh, just anything I felt like I was being held back by all of these restrictions and these rules and these policies and these things, whereas he's like, I'm gonna do what I want, and for me to kind of tap into some of that, and him kind of telling me a lot of these things, like, you're just a slave, Sarah. You keep on going that way, you're just a slave. And I'm like, he's right, but I don't want to say he's right. And I fought it tooth and nail until I finally, just because I was afraid of security, of a paycheck, of health insurance, and all of these stable things that are like I thought I needed, when the reality was that I actually didn't need those things at all. I just needed to be able to sink my energy into the thing that I actually enjoyed the most. And that will come to fruition all on its own. I was just putting my energy in the wrong spot.
Yeah, beautiful. That's amazing.
Mhm.
That do what I want, by the way, is so I started working on a levels of freedom because there are levels, and lo and behold, of course, they coincide right up with 8 archetypes of the hero's journey. And that do what I want is the rebel's freedom. Do whatever I want. So it's a stage, it's a place of
Mhm.
freedom, but you're in a totally different place with that king archetype, and I was what was I going to relate this back to? Nah, can't remember.
That's all right. We'll hit some the questions, and then if it comes up, cut me off. We'll
Okay,
we'll bring it back up.
okay.
Uh, P. Fletch says, "What if I'm not a hero, but the lead henchman for the three troll armies?" That's fair, P. Fletch. I happily accept all trolls. Uh, Tom says, "I want to know if she plays them git fiddles."
Right. Yes, I do play the guitar. Uh, Less electric. My son is the electric guitar player, like amazing. He has a good channel called Psycho something or other, Siiko. But I'm currently on the injured side. It's going to be a little time before I hope I get full use of this hand back. We'll see. And so my first instrument is singing. I love to sing, and you can actually find my albums if you're on Spotify or iTunes or any of those online streaming places. You can just search Beth Martens. Got 3 albums under the Beth Martens, and I've got one under the name they called me in India, because I went 8 times and had a guru on a mountain. And they called me Vijaya because my first name is Victoria. So you'd have to search this Vijaya to find my album, The Living Knowledge.
Oh,
And yeah,
you
so I
more and
do.
more interesting.
I lived a lot of different incarnations and wanted to be in the music business, but they didn't like happy people. That was one thing I didn't fit in. That if you're happy, it doesn't work in music.
Oh, well, that I'm not surprised, honestly. I'm really not surprised. Tom asks, narrative identity and identity theory has huge links to archetypes. Modern research shows interesting neurological mappings for some archetypes. Hero's journey has shown to have positive outcome correlations. Any thoughts there?
Wow, he's smarter than I am. So narrative identity. I do a lot of work on identity because that's the main reason that we hold on to programs is because there's an unconscious identification with them. What that means is that we think that's who we are, right? So many people run up against this. I ask them, could you let that program go? And they say, but then I won't exist. Who will I be? I don't know. And that's how profound it can be. It's like you're literally agreeing to not exist, but that never happens. I've never had that problem. And so I don't necessarily, maybe I don't know the lingo of narrative identity. Identification is exactly the tool that our controllers use to keep us locked in that states where we're identifying it with certain, and then they psyopt it like, oh, I identify as a bus or I don't know, something dumb like that. But neurological mappings for some archetypes, absolutely, they're so consistent in nature. And thank you, Michelle, by the way. She's posting a bunch of links for me. I love her so much.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, that's really sweet. And
Love wrenches.
yeah, to me, it's all tied in. There's no like body, mind, and spirit thing there's show me the barrier between any of those. It doesn't exist, but it's helpful. Same with the archetypes. It's helpful to break them out and look at them and put them as if under a microscope, as if they are unique or can be isolated. They can't be. It's just not like that, because the reality is wholeness. We're in a realm of wholeness. So yes, absolutely. It's there. I'm very interested in that, about neurological mappings for the archetypes. Here's journey is shown to have some positive outcome. Amazing. Yeah, it's beautiful.
Well, Tom was just on the other day for his interview. Maybe we could pair the two of you up with a conversation. It sounds like Tom is well versed. Tom, let me know in the chat if this is something that you're like have deep dive, because he's a book person. Based on our interview, he dives into a lot of books. And so I'm wondering, based on his super chats, if this is an arena he went down. Pardon me. Research on the self-concept applies too. Past self is not real. It's the story we're told. Current self is not real. It's the story we're telling. And our future possible selves depend on our story.
Nice. That's very deep. That's very deep. That's how you get right down to the core of it and challenge all of what you consider to be reality, and bravely, I'll say, let go of your self-concept. That's how you become a light, free person, is letting go of anyone that you think you are. So sometimes that's exactly my prayer. God, like, take all of me, take the whole thing. I don't need any of this crap. And then, of course, when you hit the precipice and you're like, no, not that. Right?
But I liked that part.
Yeah. Oh, exactly. I depend on that part. Oh, I'm kind of using that part to.
How do you decide, or how do you figure out where aside from kind of deep work and digging into stuff, like, how do you decide which ones get cut out and which ones don't?
I would go indiscriminately with letting everything go. I actually had a time of very severe insomnia. So I was always deep diving how to do that. And sometimes the release work would make me way more alert and aware. And I've had big breakthroughs, again, back to the like another conversation for health. But I experimented with letting go of the waking state because it has a certain architecture. I use that word as a metaphor. I don't have a better word for it, but the waking state is a thing. The dream state is a thing. Deep sleep is a thing, or could just be the absence of the thing. So I experimented with letting the waking state go. And for a time, I was able to depixelize the waking state and put myself to sleep that way. Now, some part of me got hip to it, and it wasn't like a long forever solution, but it did for a time. It really worked. The main cause of my insomnia now I know to be copper poisoning. So that's, I sleep like a baby now. It's amazing. Miracle.
Oh God. Well, I will say I've always slept like a baby.
Good for you. That is
Yeah, my mom makes fun of me because I'm like, I could sleep on a rock, and be perfectly content and get a full solid 8 hours and wake up perfectly like, oh, here's the world today.
I bow to you.
Yeah, you could run a
Wow.
march. I actually legit slept through a fire alarm system in a dorm. I was doing this 1 week seminar when I was in college away at this it was like at a nunnery type thing. But they had us in these dorms and the fire alarm went off in the middle of the night on our first night there. And I'm just sleeping happy. No, you don't have any roommates or anything. You just have your one little room, sleeping like a baby. I wake up, I come down, I'm like in line for breakfast, saying hey to all the girls, my classmates and stuff, talking. And they're like, where were you last night? And I'm like, what do you mean? I was in bed. And they're like, no, when the fire alarm went off. And I'm like, what? And they're like, yeah, the entire building, the fire alarm went off. Thank God there wasn't an actual fire. It was just something got triggered. But everyone left the dorms and went outside and met at the spot they were supposed to. And there I am. I would have been dead if it was a real fire. I'm just beep, beep.
Fun. Oh,
Yeah,
that's really cool.
that's
Yeah.
how hard I sleep. When it's the best sleep too. Oh, it's so solid. And don't ever try waking me up. That's dangerous.
Okay.
Dangerous.
Good to know. I'll hold that in mind.
Here's one for you, angry amputee. Got your name on the screen. I hope it helps both of our egos. I'm wondering if angry amputee in the chat wasn't being very nice earlier or something, but it sounds like Tom's taking care of it on behalf of the ladies. Alexander says chemo targets fast-growing cells by disrupting cell division. It's essentially poison. The balance is that the dose must be high enough to kill the cancer, but low enough to not kill you first. Ooh. Is that kind of what you were alluding to earlier?
Yeah, it's that internal death. It kills the fastest growing cells first because they're the fastest to metabolize the poison. And so that's, you never know how blessed your mucous membranes are until they're gone. And that's the lining of your eyes, your nose, your mouth, your ears, your lungs, your stomach. Like everything is lined with these soft, permeable tissues. And when they're gone, that's not fun. That's like a very, very weird kind of internal death. So, yep. And that's their hope, that they give you enough to kill the cancer, but not you. And it's pure brutality. There's no redeemable features. It's really meant to kill people, and most of them die of their treatments.
Almost is the question is like, is it worth it at that point? But I guess that's why you have all of the statistics and the chances and the this and that to work through. I'm a fan of conservative treatment as much as I can. I've had like several doctors tell me, you need surgery on your neck, you need surgery on this, and I'm just like, let's try conservative first. And come to find out, physical therapy, acupuncture, it works wonders. Solved, problem solved, no more issues.
Exactly. Yeah, that system is really designed to kill. It's part of the whole genocide.
Yep. Tom says, for hijacking the chat with Geek Talk the last few minutes. Fair enough, Tom. But you guys, it's your chat. You guys have your own little conversation out there.
I'm sorry I missed so much of it. Because to really hear and be attentive in the conversation, I'll have to go back to the chat after.
Yeah, I never like to watch the chat for these only because it's like for at least for my side, like this is behind the scenes and you guys are just here watching it. So they can have their own little conversation and then if they want my attention, this is by sending one of these, this is how they get it.
Nice.
I find
Nice.
that to be fair. Alexander says paying up my own nerd tax. Hey, that's you guys want to compete with nerd tax? I'll accept it gladly. P. Fletch says, Beth, what are your thoughts on the anti-hero's journey? Is there an anti-hero journey? Is it the thing?
Okay, so I'm going to just make stuff up right now. So I tend to reject the labels and titles that people give that like they're the anti-hero, say, of a movie or something. I have
Mhm.
a vague idea of that. And yeah, I probably couldn't do justice to the question without a whole lot of context on exactly what they're trying to do there. But I do think of how they've ruined the hero's journey in a lot of modern movies. I remember going to, what was it, one of the Avengers, maybe the End Game or something like that, and how they broke the hero's journey, where it used to be a standard and people couldn't not create through it. It's because it's so hardwired. It's one of those like that there's always the stages of the hero's journey. They might be in different order. They might be, you know, some skipped and those kind of things, but it just always came full circle on that journey. And then all of a sudden, like you get these like blunt, weird endings that didn't resolve, that the hero didn't bring the goods, but the elixir back. And you know, so I think to me, like that's they're attempting to break that archetype, but you can't break it. It's although you can severely damage the person that's going through the journey.
Mhm.
So yeah, the anti-hero, I'm not really qualified to say too much more about it, unfortunately. Sorry, Fletch.
That's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair. Iotan says, great conversation here. As a lady myself, if I show up for you, I'm not showing up for me. Hits hard in an occupational sense. Great advice to high octane professionals trapped in service to others.
Yeah, that is
Ooh.
such a good code to break if you get to the bottom of it. I created an entire course for the nurturer archetype. Why? Because for some reason, I'm either attracting a lot of nurturers or another. I had some revelations on this when I was deep diving into it that a lot of us were damaged at birth in the birth process, you know, with hospital births and the drugged births. And my mom gave birth to me on amnesia drugs, right? Twilight
Mm.
birth. She had no idea how it went, or not, so neither of us know what was going on. She's near dead because that's what those drugs do, you know, get
Mm.
you to a place where you're just you don't have the power of awareness anymore. And so that birthed this very shadow nurturer where and this is a little deep, but like right away as an infant being born, I wanted to save my mom because she was dying and that
Oh.
meant my death, right?
Oh, that makes sense because you're in the womb at the time when they're giving her all this stuff, and
Exactly.
your baby feels what mommy feels, right? In aspect.
Totally, totally. Right. So then we end up at just a bunch of totally wounded nurturers trying to look after other people, or, you know, in jobs, they take total advantage of people's shadow nurturer side. That gets you to choose one over yourself until you burn out and you're expendable and disposable, and they just replace you with another over nurturer, over helper, over this and that. But I promise you that you can break this dynamic where it's going to be me or them. And that's the precipice, the halfway mark of the hero's journey when you cross over into the lover. So that is a fantastic, I can't recommend that resource enough. And Michelle just posted a link direct to the Nurturer Cure. That's one of the most successful works that I've ever done, actually, watching
I'm
it.
probably gonna what I'll do is I'll go scope out your chat later when I go to cut all this up, and I'm gonna pull all those links. If your chat is still open, I'm assuming it is. I'll be able to pull all of those from your end. That way, I can
Oh, right, because you
add
guys
them
aren't
in.
seeing them. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I can see him over here, but I wouldn't be able to. I wouldn't be able to. I don't think I can. Maybe I can.
Yeah, I can always put them. No, I can't copy
Oh,
stuff. Oh yeah,
yeah. Like I see them, but I wouldn't be able to
here I
copy that
can.
and pull
It
it.
looks like I can. So
That's all right. If I go into the chat later, well, I'll go ahead and pull that. Oh, that's on your website anyways. So that's good. Okay.
yeah,
Perfect. But yeah, I'll scope everything out if I'm missing anything. Um, yeah, no, I think that the nurture I feel can be just in my understanding of it, I feel like it can be really taken advantage of by a lot of people. Like that's why I said codependent no more, I think was the book I read. And trying to get myself out of that and out of allow like being an enabler for it. And I think the nurturer role can be tapped into for that. Um, and it makes sense why they would be the most vulnerable in a work setting because, hey, if you've got a person that says yes to everything or wants to ensure everybody's good and always is taking care of everyone else, that's a dog I want to be working for me. It's I only have to feed it one treat a day and it's happy doing its job, whereas there's other people that they know that you they won't let you do that. They won't let you take an advantage of that. And it makes sense why nurturers are so vulnerable to uh being like what's the word? Not exposed, but
exploited.
exploited. And that's the sad part.
Yeah,
That's the
it
really sad.
really is. It really is. And then they turn into a victim and they don't see that they have any power or way out of it. It happens in families where you get the biggest and the burnout. Yeah. uh, where you get the biggest nurture of the family ends up taking care of. They often don't marry, they don't have their own family. They end up the caregivers of the parents as they age,
Mhm.
and it's tragic because they end up totally alone after it's all done. So yeah, this is a really good one to get to the bottom of if it's a dynamic that can. Annie D is here. Nice to see you. Passive aggressive thing when it's off balance. Oh, yes. Nurturers can be the absolute meanest, most aggressive, intense killers. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Hmm.
I feel like I went through a very strong I think this actually was what created a big part of my divorce too. Not that I don't think it was the crux of it, but I think it led to not being able to find resolution in issues because I was just enabling so much and that burnout, and I became angry about it and upset about things, and it was like, I yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways, um, well, did you want to shout out your channel and everything? Oh, wait, hold on. We got one more came in. Alexander, I'm not complaining. The worst part is no matter how much you try to tell the nurturer that they need to start saying no and doing things for themselves, it's so hard to convince them to do it. I'm 1 for 2 on that. But you were saying earlier that it's not necessarily teaching them to say no, it's you have to find your purpose and then those answers are going to come naturally of which things you should say yes to and which things you should say no to.
You're a quick study, Sarah. That's amazing. Good for you. Yeah. Yeah. That's really good. Yeah, exactly. So it doesn't matter how much you try to tell a nurturer to say no because it's their true nature. They're there to serve and help. And then they haven't included themselves in that. They're caught in the us or them or me or them kind of a pattern. And so yeah, there's no changing a nurturer because you're actually asking them to cut their head off, to cut their
Right.
purpose off.
Because it feels unnatural to not give. It feels unnatural to not do. It feels unnatural to not be accommodating and be the person that everyone can depend on. It's unnatural to feel anything other than. I know that feeling, and I would even say for myself, it was a really weird switch to say, "I'm going to go do something for me today." And there's nothing anybody can do about it, right? And that's maybe in line with saying no, but I was saying yes to me and my purpose of things I wanted to do, whether it was I want to go to the gym because one of my pieces as I want to be healthy for me and show up for me there. I'm useless to you if I am weak, right?
Right, exactly. If you want to be a superpower helper, then you better take royal care of yourself. You
Hmm.
better be in really good shape, have high energy, and be strong and inspired, and all of that kind of stuff.
Right.
So then you
Well,
see how that feeds
it's
back in a beautiful way.
you can't pour from an empty cup. And learning that, I would say, was the best thing in life, that I've really, like, hard locked in on is I cannot pour any water or tea
Mm.
or anything you need into your own cup if mine I myself am empty. I have nothing left to give, and if I have nothing to give, I'm useless to you. So, in order to be useful to you, I have to ensure that my cup is full at all times so that I can pour a little over. Un Yeah, I
Totally.
think that's a bigger part of it.
Hmm.
This was fun. I feel so much smarter now.
That's beautiful. Yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yes, tell everyone where they can find you, everything they can get to, the sacred path, all of that stuff is in the video description as well, but tell them about it, and this is your moment to shine.
Okay, well, thank you so much for hosting me. If anybody would like to get started on doing this work, the simplest, easiest thing to do is to go and on my homepage, bethmartens.com, this is a direct link to it. You can find the um, King Hero Archetype quiz where you can place yourself on the scale of purpose right now, or the spiral of purpose, however you want to say it. The map of purpose is another way to say it. And so in 10 minutes, you can find out that archetype. It comes along with 10 videos, so you can get some detail right away and download some. People often message me and say, oh my goodness, like I'm just so the lover, and that's a perfect fit. If anyone would like to, you can get a copy of my book if you want to go deep into the archetypes. This is like the next level or layer of way to explore those through my story of recovering from cancer and a lot of other poignant moments in my life. It's a little bit of a memoir in there, but it's good to tell the story of archetypes rather than just talk about them all the time. The stories are very elucidating. They are relatable. People often tell me, by the way, with this book that they read it like 2 and 3 times. It's all marked up. They make a lot of notes in it, and it's so that's really fun for me because I didn't want to have a ugly baby like one of my coaches said I might have. Oh, and Michelle's so great. She's posting a link too. I'll grab that. That's the. You can also get a PDF. You just have to ask me for it if you prefer a PDF and can't, for some reason, afford the hard copy. And then the course that we've been talking about, Find Your Sacred Purpose, is a 7-module standalone online course that you can also do with personal coaching, one-on-one with me or one of the coaches that I've trained, and going through the process of basically everything that stands in the way of you living purposefully and tapping into those threads of, can be passion or interest, or where it just feels like, yes, this is a life worth living and I'm able to receive and give and be. There's actually a whole module on this exact dynamic, which comes down to the masculine feminine. So you get to explore some of that in there, some of the key programs that stand in the way, although all the programs stand in the way. But in my experience helping people with this subject, I've given my best tools, and a lot of people end up taking that course and using that as a springboard into deeper work or into creating their own life path purpose, for example, which you could do with me. There is the Primal Power course, which is the 5 archetypes that are the basic life and death that we talked about. There's that Nurture or Cure course we already talked about. And people can work one-on-one with me if you want your handheld through some of this work. I'm always very happy to do that with people. I always interview people one-on-one first to see if it really is a good timing for them to do this work, because it doesn't work for everybody. I'll just say that you have to be in that place where you're willing to feel your bad feelings and be not. I don't ask anyone to be vulnerable, but I get what you were saying earlier, that it's a vulnerability when you see, and one bit of comfort is I put myself through it all the time. I never ever stop doing this work and say, "Oh, I finished, I'm so great," and that everybody else needs to do it. It gets harder for me, not easier. So when we're doing the real work, remembering that also it's the collective consciousness, right? It's not just us as individuals, it's how we tie in and the service that we can effectively be to all of humanity by doing our own inner work. So the two more things I can mention that COVID inspired me to create a coaching certification training where I teach others how to be a coach and to help people find their archetypes and to do the release work. That's going to come up again in September of 2026. That's like my brainchild. It saved me from insanity during the insane years. And I've now done 6 trainings, going to be running the 7th in 2026. And then the last thing is I'm in the process of creating a companion to that Journey Code coaching certification training called Creator Code. And that's for those who want to do the personal journey of learning the tools of deprogramming, being able to apply them to the basic visioning process, which to me is like freedom and purpose. It's just a matter of seeing what sits on top of that and makes it impossible. So if we could vision the world that we wanted and really hold that vision, we could have that. And that would be a service to humanity as well. So that's going to be coming up. The first pilot run of that course will come up starting in January, and it will be an invite only. So if you sign up for, say, my archetype quiz, you'll be in my community and to have an opportunity to jump in then or any time after that that it gets created. So that's, I think, pretty much everything. I also, the House of Free Will, I didn't talk about very much. Is my private association that I have. It's I consider it to be my living room. It's where I really get comfortable and I swear more and I tell a lot of personal stories. We have unrecorded meetings. So that allows me to be myself. People would literally have to, there hasn't been a breach that I know of, but I will say much more about what, the politically incorrect things to say and how I really feel about this or that that's going on. So those are fun. And thank you, my Telegram chat. I've got a King Hero Telegram channel and a King Hero Telegram chat. And there's a private chat for the House of Free Will as well. The House of Free Will is by application. So if you go to my website, you'll find a form where it takes you to a link where it takes you to the application. I just want to make sure we're the same kind of people, that we have similar values, that you're going to get along. I pride myself in the fact that people in that association get along, but are not all the same. And so we can have different viewpoints, we can have conversations, we can have even debates, but it never gets down to, insults and just, people flying off the handle and freaking out and I hate you and I'm leaving. And, it's been extremely adult. We're studying the law, we're studying health, we're studying all kinds of solutions-based things. It's definitely for truthers, but it's not just the regurgitating all what's wrong and all the lies of everything. So this is my little baby. It was born when we were afraid nothing would exist for us if we didn't run and hide in the private. Now I understand a lot more about the private. I was very misled before, but regardless, I love the House of Free Will. To me, that is my highest value, is free will.
It's everything you were saying about how you guys actually have conversations and nobody's screaming and yelling. And I'm like, that's definitely not what we do here.
I know the contrast. Actually, you have such a strong nervous system. I can't wait to interview you on the King Heroes channel and just like really get inside the workings of your mind and what you're up to. I have a lot of respect and admiration for that.
I will hold all of my thoughts into them because there's so many things I want to spit out at that very moment about my nervous system. But yes, ladies and gentlemen, if you really enjoyed this interview, Beth is hosting next round, but this time we're switching roles. She gets to deep dive into my brain, which is kind of, it's scary. Okay, I bring shield, armor, sword. All right.
You're very.
We will do this on, I believe we said the 12th?
November 12th at 5 p.m. Central Standard Time. And then if it's okay if I share one last thing, is my
Yeah.
YouTube channel. I lost my first YouTube channel because I was bad and wrong, according to YouTube. And so I'm still building this one up. And if anybody feels to go and sub to that channel, I would greatly appreciate it.
Let me see. Let me actually make sure I pull that up on my end so I can.
Here, I'll put it in the private
Oh,
chat.
thank you. That makes it
Save you a
easier.
step.
That way I can send you all that way
Yeah.
as well. I probably have it in the video description. I just probably don't even realize I do.
I think you do, actually. I think I remember seeing it there. And you can find me on Instagram and Facebook and X and all of that kind of thing. But I spend most of my time.
Facebook. I love that.
I can't
Oh my
saying
goodness.
that.
Oh, but yes, ladies and gentlemen, make your way over to Beth and go give her like, subscribe, share all those things. But also come back on the 12th, early run for us. I'm usually a night streamer, but early run for us, and we get to reverse the roles. And it's all right. It's going to be scary. I just think it's going to be scary.
I'll be gentle with you. And I hear this is one of the things I'm most proud of, that people give very, very beautiful interviews with me. I don't know exactly what it is. It is a part of the purpose to be asking the questions, that this is a role that I cherish. And yeah, I love and adore my guests and take care of them. So.
Oh, well, you don't have to be gentle with me. Nobody else is, and I'm okay with it. You know what? If you can make me cry on screen, you get a trophy. Okay.
Okay. Oh, darn! Don't tell me that.
It's a whole trophy. You did it. You made the mater cry. It's just been years since I've cried for things people have said to me. So outside of happy tears, I've had a lot of happy tears. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to say good night to you. We will see you back here on the 12th together with us both again. And outside of that, catch you later.